Hello, 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 and welcome to the first episode of Good Morning Source Gaming of 2025. It's me, your host, Nantenjex, here with some jazzy New Year's Eve midnight music from Animal Crossing. Shoutouts to Wario the Legend for being so early in the chat that his comments not even showing up on the stream. And thank you everyone else for joining. Now, with me today we have Corlin, Wolfman Jew, and Snazzy, and I'm going to be jumping into the chat with them right now. Morning, fellas.
Hello. Hello.
Good
morning.
How are we all feeling here for the first Good Morning Source Gaming of the new year?
Oh, a little eepy.
Slightly tired, but I'll get better.
Well, I feel that, to be honest. I've been having a few too many late nights. I need to get back into the proper workflow as I have to go back to work tomorrow. I don't want to be 5 cups of coffee down just to get through it. So, let me move over to some good video game music play in the background for the stream.
Ooh.
Let me know how the audio sounds, people in the chat, if I need to turn anyone
Yes,
up
please do. Please let us know.
Yeah.
It's always important.
Yeah, because there's definitely some variation, and I'm going to need to turn Wolfman up just so that your audio matches with Corlin's, because you're not usually here for these. So I haven't done any sort of specific audio settings for you. So, given that this is the rare appearance from you, I'm going to start off with you, Wolfman. How was the holidays?
The holidays are, well, not really are, because I have my birthday in a few days. So to be honest, this whole season is very holiday. It has a lot of holiday energy for me, and so yeah, I've been doing well.
Does that mean you get double the presents, or does everyone buy you just one set and they're like, "This is for this is for the whole period"?
No. Well, it's just the same as it normally would be. It's just concentrated.
Ah, I see.
Yeah, I'm very excited.
So,
yeah.
What you got plans for it? You seeing a movie? You having friends around?
I don't know. I watched Nosferatu right after Christmas, so to be honest, it's kind of hard for a movie to kind of match that.
That's good to hear. I've heard a lot of good things about Nosferatu. I really should go and check it out.
Yeah, it's excellent stuff. I still think the Werner Herzog remake is slightly better, but they're really good. They're both really good.
But could it possibly beat the cinematic opus that is Sonic 3? That's
Probably.
the question.
I mean, Sonic 3, to my own... Sonic 3 has 2 Jim Carreys, which kind of puts it below. It's a lot of Jim Carrey.
Yeah, it's less than the optimal amount of Jim Carrey. I'll say that. I have yet to see Sonic 3 or Nosferatu.
I will say it is a quick Sonic 3 review from me here. I think the movie is probably the best one, but I actually think Jim Carrey in this movie is like worse than he is in Sonic 2. Like I feel like the first movie everyone was worried that Jim Carrey was just going to play himself, and he kind of did. But then in the second, but then they build up to him becoming Eggman slowly over the course of the film. And in the second movie, he feels very much like Eggman. But the third movie, he feels like he's Jim Carrey again.
Yeah, I think that's what happens when you finally do a movie where there's 2 Jim Carreys, which apparently this is the first one. Which is
and hopefully
shocking.
Kind of surprising, yeah. I did figure he'd go full Eddie Murphy at some point and just be all like 12 Jim Carreys.
I haven't seen Sonic 3. The night Sonic 3 and Mufasa came out, I went to go see Kraven the Hunter. So that's...
I see.
How was the Rhino's weird retcon?
I actually, I'm gonna miss the Spumka universe. Let me be honest, gamers. They're like, They're
They're
not
like a weird window into what if people didn't stop making the same sort of weird, not quite getting it comic book movies from
Yeah,
the
exactly.
2000s. Yeah.
There's
It's
something.
yeah.
There's something to be said for the fact that we're kind of in like a very in like an era of adaptations, and I think like especially like superhero adaptations where they're trying to be very faithful and very like friendly and very like true to the source material and everything, and they have all kinds of crazy all kinds of like incredibly obscure background references, and sometimes that works, but there's something kind of nice about like, oh, these are just dumb comic book movies from an era where like I get delighted when I hear about Taserface, or when My Adventures with Superman repeatedly references Superman's old Silver Age mermaid girlfriend Lori Lamaris.
Yeah.
But there's something kind of nice about like, no, a Craven movie was always going to be this dumb. It was always going to feel like it came out of that weird era of Ghost Rider and the Thomas Jane Punisher.
The concept behind these movies honestly like kind of rock in a way. Like I love the premise of Madam Web, which is effectively like a Marvel one-shot comic, but like if it was a Terminator 1 ripoff, but with spider people, that rules. Like that's even though the movie itself is like super technically janky, and
that movie has the best ADR, and by best,
it's got some insane ADR work, but like I don't know, it's camp, it's silly, like it's you can watch it like 15 times and still laugh at the same bits.
I feel like we've sort of circled back, and I feel like this with the MCU sometimes, all the way to like the 1993 Super Mario Bros. Movie, where it's like, well, we know that the Mario Bros. In-game jump really high, but we need a way to to explain that to modern audiences. They're not going to say guys that jump high. So we'll give them like weird like boots that let them jump high, and you're like, well, you're kind of missing the point of everything, like you're like
That's sort of like the thing about Craven. So like the thing about Craven is that it feels like it's the only Spumka movie that feels like it's what they actually intended to do from the get-go, where it is like a bunch of B and C tier Spider-Man villains duking it out, because it's not just Craven and the Rhino in it, but you also have Calypso and everyone's favorite 1980s C tier Spider-Man villain, the Foreigner. And fuck it. Why not? Like, why the fuck not?
Why not?
The Steven Seagal movie?
Why not?
Yes. He's like a dude with time stop powers. And it's so funny, because Craven is just like a guy. So it's like, what's he gonna do?
So on a scale of Morbius to Venom, where would you rank Craven?
Ooh, I could rank all the Spumka movies. The best one is Venom 2, by far. I would actually say that Venom 2 is probably one of the best superhero movies of the past, like, 5 years.
Damn.
It's like one of the only superhero movies that isn't, like, the Batman, that has, like, actual defined character motivations and a story.
The Batman, surprisingly very good. I wasn't sure how much I was expecting, but
Penguin show also surprisingly very good.
I recently
the Penguin show is so good.
I started watching it. I'm only up to episode 2, and it's, if you had told me like 15 years ago that we were going to get into a point where there was going to be a gritty HBO show about the Penguin and that it was going to be this good. But
it is a little bit ashamed to be a comic book thing, in that we can't call him Oswald Cobblepot. That is silly. Oz Cobb, sure.
I don't mind it because they make him such a piece of shit. Like, he's literally such a super villain, like, in the show.
He's just, to respond to both of you, I actually like changing it to Cobb. I've never liked Cobblepot at all. I love comic booky stuff. Like, I really, really love comic booky stuff. But Cobblepot was always a bridge too far for me for the name. It was just a little too silly, a little bit too hard to say off the tongue. So I'm very fine with
nobody ever feels like they need to change the names of characters in like A Christmas Carol. Like it's very Dickensian to me. Like, oh, Oswald Cobblepot. Like that is literally.
I was gonna say it sounds very Victorian England.
Yeah.
The other thing though is that Oz he's a piece of shit, but he's also so incompetent. Like he's very clever at points, but he's also just an absolute moron in others a lot of the time, and it really it makes me remember that like back when like a lot of the prestige like TV dramas were very much like all in the Sopranos mold. They really like to have like super smart
and your
your Kelsey Grammer in whatever in Boss, your Steve Buscemi in Boardwalk Empire is like the thing that all of these guys missed was that Tony Soprano was an idiot and was at times clever, but was often incredibly stupid, who basically survived off the incompetence of his enemies. And I think one of the things I really like about the Penguin is that Oz is clever at times, but is also so actively self-destructive. Like,
he's got like the Saul Goodman gift of the gab. Like that's sort of like how they put the spin on the Tony Soprano like archetype, where he's not really like charismatic, or I mean he's a little charismatic, but he's more like he can just talk his way out of any situation.
I'm gonna say this, and I'm not gonna spoil it for Wolfman, but like the ending is great. I kind of wanted like almost like a Sopranos like fade to white, like just completely just like this very almost Scorsese like prestige television like gangster drama, just randomly ending with Batman just breaking in and punching everybody, and you're like, okay, I guess that happened. I didn't even know Batman was aware of this.
That would be the real comic book way to go about it.
Penguin turns around, gets punched, fade to white. That's the end. You're like, whoa, his plans didn't even come together. I don't know what happened there.
That dude Bruce gotta get off of Black Ops. Like there's like whole city blocks being leveled. Like, get off your ass. Where is he?
I also, as for like its comic booky stuff, I wouldn't mind more stuff, but it does remind me of that I believe that Fox show Gotham, where it was basically a version of the Gotham Central comic where it's about the Gotham police force, but in the show, like, every episode has to have a Batman villain, and it became increasingly goofy, or not even increasingly goofy, to the point where the very first villain was an OC bad guy called the Balloon Man, who would tie people to balloons
Hell
and have the balloons fly off until they popped. And I'm like, I would love to see more things that feel distinct to Gotham City, but at the same time, if it's by this point, I would rather it just be a good like crime drama, and if being less Batman-y makes it a better one, then I'm okay with that. Delzathan mentions you could actually frame that pretty well. All of his plans come together at the end, but unfortunately for him, that makes him a big enough threat to actually get on Batman's radar. I like that idea. Because
I sorta.
I mean, in the end, he's still, like, he's working for the city's biggest crime family, but he's still a very small cog in this machine.
Well, I just mean that, like, by the end of the show, sorta. Like, it's
there's
without going into spoilers, it does kind of, like, it does have to tie back into, like, the Batman Part 2.
Yeah, and my wife's like, "Oh, is he going to be the villain for that?" And I'm like, "No, I think they did all of this setup so that he can be like the Scarecrow in the Dark Knight. Like, I think he's just going to get like beat up at the beginning of the next movie."
The number of villains that Reeves has said he wants to use is wild, and I'd be like dismissive, but he did make a movie with like 4 Batman villains, 5 if you count like Carmine Falcone, and it actually, for the most part, held together. So if his actual movie does feature like Clayface and Mr. Freeze and at least some of the previous villains.
Yeah.
Which,
Like-
And it's interesting
which
'cause-
superhero has the big wheel? Is that Batman or Spider-Man?
That's Spider-Man. Has big
Yeah. Spider-Man, I think, has actually the best rogues gallery because he has. He has Big Wheel.
Yeah, true. There we go.
He
That's
also
all I
has
said.
It's like
he
12
also-
different goblins.
See, that's
He
the thing that
also
sucks.
has-
We'll never get Sony's big wheel.
Yeah, what's I think even more.
Where's
egregious
my
is-
El Muerte?
No, but I think the most egregious of all of these is the lack of Razorback, a 70s Spider-Man villain who existed basically because for a few years in the 1970s, Americans got really into trucker culture. So he's a giant armadillo with electricity powers, but his gimmick is that he's a trucker.
Hell
And
yeah.
that's fucking it. Oh yeah, the
Big
Hypno
rigs,
Hustler
trucker
and
man.
Turner D. Century, the guy whose thing is that he hates everything from the past 100 years.
What a name! I love that. Holy shit, Turner D.
I mean, he's not an
Century.
armadillo. He's clearly a hog because he's a razorback.
Oh, you're right. Yeah, yeah. It's just that he's a Razorback. It's just that his back is actually a razor because it's electrical.
Yes. His
comics
real name, by the
are-
way, I just looked it up. Buford Hollis. Great name.
Yes. That
These are
is
some solid
a-
names.
There is like kind of a thing that I appreciate about like characters who could basically only exist in a certain era, and a lot of that are like great Silver Age villains that no one would ever like dare to make today, but since their like existence have become great. Kraven is honestly one of those. But like I think it's especially wonderful when it's those villains and heroes who like only existed to capitalize on a super specific trend. Dazzler is like that.
My favorite is a Teen Titans villain, Mad Mod. Amazing.
Yes, I love Mad Mod. That dude rules.
Amazing, yeah.
He's
Now you bring him up, and he just seems like well, not even anymore because did people even know what Austin Powers is anymore? I was about to say now it
I'd
just seems
hope
like an
so.
Austin Powers. I don't know, man.
Yeah, actually, that original Teen Titans run has a bunch. Ding Dong Daddy is another favorite of mine. He basically only exists because of like slot car racing was popular.
Dell says Trucker Hog with electric powers. Why does that feel like a Rivals of Aether character? Yeah, man,
True.
I play that.
I was gonna say we really need like DC's Bookworm to
Yes.
to round things out.
The modern day Egghead.
Yes. Before we should move
Yeah,
on
I
to
don't know
actually
what
talking
happened
about
here. I'm
video
sorry, man.
games. Finish your tier list that you were going.
Oh,
through.
my tier. Okay, so Venom 2, top tier. That's the best Spunka movie, easily. Number 2 has to go to my gal, Madam Web. Me love Madam Web. Number
Pepsi.
3.
Pepsi
Number-
stuff in that movie is amazing. Amazing.
It's so
Just all
good.
of the product placement.
Number 3's got to be the first Venom. Number 4 has got to be Kraven the Hunter. Number 5 is gonna be Venom: The Last Dance, which I was really disappointed by.
Yeah,
And yeah, not that the bar is very high, but like, come on. And then the last one's Morbius. That movie just blows. Like, it's just,
Of all of these, I've only seen Venom 1 and Morbius. And Morbius is, I was coming in like really excited to make fun of it. It's very dull.
all
It's
the other
bad.
movies have more going for it because they're not a movie about Morbius.
Yeah.
Like,
Morbius doesn't even feel like an early 2000s movie. Morbius feels like
people going to work.
No, dude, it
feels
feels like
like
a
Borderlands.
Sci-Fi Channel original Morbius, but with enough of a budget to not make it look as bad as a Sci-Fi Channel original. Like,
Have y'all seen the Fox pilot Generation X?
Yes, I own
Yeah,
it.
it's like the
I have it on
same-
VHS. I
Yeah.
recorded it. Still
I'm-
got it.
Yeah, I haven't seen the Generation X pilot. I haven't seen the Justice League of America pilot that has David Ogden's... No, not David Ogden Sire, sorry. Brian Stokes Mitchell as the Martian Manhunter.
Oh my god.
Which is a casting choice.
Yeah, that sounds
Does it have
incredible.
White Jubilee though? White Jubilee.
Yeah, they. Oh my god.
I have only
Even like
seen
back in the
Morbius,
90s, I was
only
like,
black and white.
Jubilee's clearly not white. Like, what a choice. Okay.
So yeah, welcome to Good Morning Source Gaming, where we're talking about regrettable comic book movies.
Yeah, welcome to the nerd crew.
Let's get some gaming in here, shall we?
Yeah.
I got this.
All right.
You know what Morbius really feels like, and I said it earlier. It feels like a Borderlands movie.
It does. Yeah, it's like just as cynical. Yeah.
But it's just as cynical and just as mercenary. But the Borderlands movie is like Morbius largely bored me. I was coming in with the excitement of making fun of Jared Leto, but even that like proved too much of an ask for a movie that dull. Borderlands was painful. It was intensely painful to watch.
Yeah.
I have to tally up all the new films I've seen this year. I think I've seen about like 40 or 50 new releases total.
I've watched like 5 movies this weekend, and my brain is fried, especially because the last one was Kinds of Kindness, and I'm like,
holy shit!
I'm like, man, I like me some Yorgos, I like me some killing of sacred lobsters or whatnot, but there wasn't a lot of sense to that movie, man. That was a movie that I don't know. I'm not going to get into it.
No one in who's listening to this is gonna get what I'm about to say, but I'm gonna say it anyway. That's like that movie's like Yorgos making a Todd Solondz movie. Like if you've ever seen Happiness or Wiener Dog.
Yep, I did.
I'd just like to say I only
exactly.
saw about 4 movies from 2024. Nosferatu, Abigail, I Saw the TV Glow, and Frankie Frico. And...
I saw the TV Glow is phenomenal.
Oh, it's amazing. It's just absolutely...
No love for Late Night with the Devil?
I did not. No, I just for whatever reason didn't see a lot of 2024 movies this last year.
I think actually that might have been like late 2023 technically, but I really like Late.
It's got some fuck ass generative AI in it. I don't care about Late Night with the Devil.
Oh, it has that for like. There's no reason for them to use it.
Yeah, they could have just hired a guy. It's so lazy.
But all it is it's for like the station break, like the we'll be right back. They like yeah, but
why they do that?
I don't know why they do that, but
yeah, Borderlands is like far and away the worst movie I saw this year. It's amazing. So fucking cynical.
It's amazing how much damage that Borderlands movie has done to the IP. Every year around this time, me and my friends do our fantasy critic thing, where we all sort of like look at what games are coming up in 2025 and make bets on which ones we think will score highly and which ones won't. And like nobody wanted to touch Borderlands with like a 10-foot pole, like because Borderlands 4 is coming out.
At one point, Borderlands apparently had a very good script, and that's why it attracted. Although I'd argue they're all miscast, but it attracted a lot of big names apparently because it had a good script.
Yeah, it was the Chernobyl writer.
Yeah, but also it. But I think also it's one of those things that had a lot of like cooks.
Yeah, they were filming that movie for like 3 years. They were doing reshoots continuously.
Yeah, also, I'm just gonna say, ignoring my many other problems with, like, Eli Roth, probably should not have done this movie, or, I mean, any movie, but especially a Borderlands movie.
Apparently, all of the, like, whenever they're outdoors in Borderlands, those are from reshoots by, like, TJ Miller. So, I don't know what the Deadpool 2 director.
You're thinking of Tim Miller.
Oh, Tim Miller. Sorry.
TJ Miller's a piece of garbage.
A different kind of predator.
He was also Tim in Deadpool, though, like as an actor.
Also, Tim Miller, director or at least producer of Secret Level, probably the world's most expensive video game advertisement.
I still haven't seen anything from that Secret Level. Like, I keep meaning to watch it, but no one's told me anything good other than the 40K.
Some of them are entertaining. It's like if you. This is gonna sound terrible, but this is exactly what it is. It's like if you take the Netflix Love, Death, and Robots, right?
Yeah.
But then you take that concept and then you say, well, each episode is going to be dedicated to a video game in a very like crass, like we're marketing video games way, which kind of takes the initial art out of it.
Yeah.
But like at the same time, I am somebody that watches superhero movies, so I do like to clap and point at the screen and say, that's a thing. So there are enough moments of that. Like the first episode is, if you play Dungeons and Dragons, and I am like on the verge of wrapping up a 3-year-long Ghost of Salt Marsh campaign, which I am DMing.
Damn.
And I am so happy because I want to just freaking play the game, and like DMing like sounds fun, and it is for a while, but whatever. But like the first D&D episode, like there's so many like little D&D things, and there's not a lot of story or anything. It's like all like flash, very little substance. But you're like, oh my gosh, that dwarf is a monk. He's using his ability to catch and throw things back, and he's using this and that, and that's Tiamat. Like it's cool-ish. And then there was Sifu, which I'm all like, I've never played this game. That I get that a lot. That's what I get a lot.
I think that's my big problem with Secret Levels. I think a lot of the games they picked are games that I just don't play ever. Like, Pac-Man and Mega Man are like the only two that I've played out of the bunch.
It's a very strange list, and I think the list really makes sense when you realize that, no, this is starting as, can we make an advertisements for things like Concord and the edgy Pac-Man game that hadn't even been announced but by the time that short came out. It feels like everything that isn't there for like purely immediate mercenary reasons is just like picked out of a hat, which isn't great.
I wonder if it's just a case of like these are just the IPs they could get, because there was an interview recently with the writers where they were talking about going to Microsoft and trying to get Halo and Doom, and going to Valve to try and get Half-Life, and just were getting turned down by everyone. So...
They're like, we'll give you Concord, and they're all like, okay. That's,
I assume... I'm going to say I think like most of the Concord marketing budget probably went into that episode.
Yeah.
But yeah,
the Mega Man one is actually really cool. Like, I like
it's the
that
shortest though, the Mega Man one.
They're all short, and I appreciate that, because nobody wants to watch like a 45-minute like. But the way that these are structured, obviously, I would watch a 45-minute episode on a game that I like, or even a game that I'm kind like, because that's the other thing too. It's like some MMO where Arnold Schwarzenegger is voicing a character. I guess it's kind of okay, the short, but I don't know the game. Mm-hmm. But like the Sifu one, I brought that up because I'm like, okay, that's kind of neat. Like, what's the concept of the game? And then I look at the game. And I'm like, the concept of the game is... And it's on Game Pass. I could have downloaded it. But I'm like, the game looks terrible, though.
Apparently Sifu's pretty alright.
If nothing else, I think its gimmick is very neat.
Yeah.
Exactly. But that's the thing, is they were just showcasing the gimmick via the thing. So it almost feels like first look, not gameplay trailer.
That's a good way of putting it. CG only reveal.
Yeah, it looks like I'm watching the Game Awards and they're showing me a really long trailer for a game.
The Game Awards experience of watching like a lot of games you don't care about in the hopes that maybe the one you like will show up, and that happened. Last year. That did happen with this year's with Okami, but like I guess in that sense, Secret Level is actually very accurately captures the experience of watching like 30 hours of video game presentations and directs.
Yeah, I'll tell you what was
which I do for this site.
Yeah, I'll tell you what was a better advert for Sony than Secret Levels. Fucking Astro Bot, baby!
Yippee.
I played that over that was the game I played over the holiday season, because I don't have a PS5, but my brother does. So when I went home, I borrowed his PS5, got Astro Bot, played through it all, and it's like the best game. It's like I knew I was going to like it, but it was shocking just how fun that game was, like, immediately. Right off the bat, just pure vibes the whole way down. And like, I really like all the little Astro Bot cameos for everything, just because like they're done really well, and it just made me super. Obviously, this is the intention, right? The game is made by people who love video games, and they're trying to get as much video gaminess into it as possible. But like, it made me like actually want to play games like Gravity Rush and all that. Just get PlayStation games that like I've not picked up because they just sort of fell off of Sony around the PS3 era, and now I'm like looking at it like, oh man, I kind of want to try Padapon now. Look, this Loco Roco level is sick. I want to play the actual Loco Roco.
The rise of Astro Bot is like so crazy to me because it started with the Playroom and the PSVR Astro Bot game that no one played either.
I have played
that.
I played the PSVR one, but
yeah.
No, it actually started for PSVR, wasn't it?
Yeah, so
demo
there
for
was
the
Playroom,
for the PS4.
which is like the stupid PS4 camera gimmick
Yeah,
hacking
exactly.
game.
Yeah, it started off as part,
been, like,
part of
5
the Pack-In
Astro Bot
VR
games, right?
game. Yeah, there's 4, I think. So there's the Pack-In VR game that came with PSVR that had the Shark Tank game and stuff.
No, there's 5 because there's the camera one on PS4. There's the demo that's a little bit better on PS5. There's 2 different ones in VR.
What's the?
I think there's just one.
No.
Just one?
So there is the PSVR demo, which had the Shark Tank one and the Gangster one and all that, and that has an Astro Bot thing, which is just like
Right,
Exactly
yeah,
what
it
I
does,
was
yeah.
that is just like one level that is basically a beta for what the Astro Bot VR game will then go on to be, and that's like the full game. And then there's Playroom, which is again kind of like a beta for what Astro Bot the game is. And then this new one, which is the first proper, fully released, doesn't require any kind of gimmick. Doesn't require any
except the DualSense
stuff.
Got me to play Ape Escape finally, says Weeb Slayer 2049.
Good. That's
You know
what
what's
we
funny
want.
about
We need
that?
more people to play Ape Escape.
I need to finish Ape Escape. So, Nantenjax and I we're doing some podcasts like years ago, and I just stopped. We played a bunch of retro games and did podcasts, which neither of us have ever actually formatted the audio for.
Yeah,
we
audio's in a weird place for that. Yeah. Some of them are out, some aren't. But anyway, go on.
Yeah. But yeah, Ape Escape was the one, and it's just because it wasn't easily accessible to me at the time.
I got really ahead on that. I remember we were like, oh yeah, hey, let's play Ape Escape for the next one, and then I beat like all of Ape Escape in like a weekend, and then I was like, all right, I've beaten Ape Escape, you ready? And you're like, oh, I've not even started it.
I'm gonna do it. I'm gonna play Ape Escape.
You should. Ape
I was
Escape
actually
is,
gonna
like,
say-
the best.
How would you go forward with Astro Bot? So I haven't played it yet. Maybe I'll buy it because it's on sale now.
Definitely.
But one of the things I've heard is that so much of it is kind of based on that celebration of Sony stuff, but there's only so many times you can do that. Like the next time you do like a Sly Cooper level, it's not going to be as engaging, right?
Yeah, well,
I think that maybe what they do is it's the gimmick is mechanical in nature.
Yeah, I think
very Mario, right? Like now we're on planet
this game
or whatever.
is very Mario Galaxy 2, and I think if you just take, the PlayStation part of it's like a nice thing to have, but it doesn't necessarily need to be like, it's not the only gimmick of the game. I think if you just make a new game, an Astro Bot 2, with like new gameplay mechanical changes, kind of like between what Nintendo did from Mario Galaxy to Mario Galaxy 2 sort of ordeal, or even go like the Mario Odyssey route and make the next Astro Bot a bit more open world, because a lot of people compare it to Odyssey because Odyssey is the new 3D Mario, but this game is definitely taking more from Mario Galaxy than it is
smaller levels.
Mario Odyssey, and its way its levels are structured and stuff. And then like you can have different ones. So like the game has, if you want to do the Sony thing still, like the game has a Ape Escape level, God of War level, Loco Roco, Uncharted,
Rappa the Rappa.
Well, it has
Miles
Rappa,
and Peter show up later.
Yeah, it has
Horizon. I'm sure.
So hold on. It has them as bots, but it doesn't have levels for all of them. There's only 5 games it has levels for.
Okay,
and that's Ape Escape, God of War, Uncharted, Horizon, and Loco Roco. And then there are a couple of secret areas that are inspired by games. There's a Crash Bandicoot area, there's a Devil Dice area. But most characters, like Sly Cooper, the only character from Sly Cooper in the game is Sly Cooper, and that's the only Sly Cooper thing there. So, in theory, you could make Sly Cooper the next, like, you could have a Sly Cooper base level where the gameplay is a bit more like Sly Cooper.
Can we get a Parappa level? Because that seems like it would be a really weird level to do.
You could do Gravity Rush is the surprising one because it feels like there should have been a Gravity Rush level in this game and there just isn't. Like PS Vita kind of gets really shafted in this game.
In general, it's pretty PS3 and PS4 heavy.
Yeah.
Yeah, but like I think you can. There are a couple series that like you could pull different characters from and stuff. Like Last of Us is really big, but the only Last of Us stuff in the game is Joel, Ellie, and a random zombie. Right? There's other.
Well, I was actually
would be
thinking,
weird
like,
to do a stage for, to be honest. Like
they did one for Uncharted,
but
and that was fine.
yeah, but like I don't know. Just personally, I feel like Uncharted is more video gamey than Last of Us.
It's true. Yes.
Yeah,
it's true, but also I think it's okay. I think the Sony brand, like the prestige Sony brand, can survive.
Yeah.
Oh yeah.
And I think you could do modern
Last
stuff. There's no Elden Ring level, Elden Ring characters in the game. Like the only FromSoft characters in the game are the two Demon Souls ones. And I think
where's the medieval level, man?
Like there's definitely things you could pull from. Well, Jack and Daxter only has Jack and Daxter, and that's it. Ratchet and Clank has Ratchet and Clank, and then the new girl from the new game, and that's it. Like, there's different, there's definitely more you can pull from other Sony games. Maybe you can have more Ape Escape characters than just a bunch of monkeys.
That would be great. That sounds like a Smash character. Bunch of monkeys.
What if the Ape Escape level is like you're actually in a net and you have to escape the net, and that's the entire level?
You play as the monkey instead of playing as Spike.
Now, speaking of Sony games, earlier last year, I guess, towards the end of the year, I never upgraded to the remastered version, but I finally beat Horizon Zero Dawn, including DLC.
Nice.
Incredible.
Yeah, I've slowly been playing that game, and then I just get bored because there's 8 million side quests and stuff since 2017. So, yeah, man, I did it.
Like a lot of video game players, I played Horizon after playing Breath of the Wild, and that's a very big bucket of ice water on traditional open world games. I found it restrictive. I hated the skill trees, the weird, like, hyper directed nature of everything, the fact that so much of it just feels like you're doing stuff to do stuff.
Yeah, man, like I'm kind of tired of just having and I know people will be like, oh, it's optional, and some people just love having so much content in a game. It just gets to a point where you're like, what am I? Like, okay, man, I'll go kill this Thunderjaw for you. I guess I was trying to save the world, but let me stop and kill this Thunderjaw for you.
It is very commendable and admirable how God of War has gone from being what it was in the late 2000s to what it is now. In terms of its story and writing and characters, it's an incredible transformation, but there is always a part of me that's going to be a little frustrated every time I open a giant Norse chest and find another doohickey that doesn't matter, and it's never going to be useful because it only incrementally changes some things and doesn't actually make the game feel less grindy. What?
I'll say this: the God of War games. And I've started playing Forbidden West as well, but the God of War games always kept me more engaged. I don't know if it's because of the gameplay, which isn't as it isn't as hack and slashy as it was, but like I don't know, like at least I feel more direction in those games than in some open world games. I think there's at least an element of when you get into an area where that area itself feels a little bit more linear, I guess. I don't know, where you're like, okay, does that make sense? What I'm saying?
Well, yeah, no, it's that they're not really. We don't really think of it as. It's more that they're just levels that you return to. More like closer to something
Yeah.
like Mario 64 than
Right.
Skyrim
Or like,
Breath of the Wild.
or like when you're talking about like the Metroidvania format, right?
Yeah.
You know, and like those Jedi Outcast games, I think are kind of similar too, where like you go to an area and it's like a distinct area, and you have things to do there, and then you can backtrack and go and explore, but it's not just like an entire world. Like there's something that. And it was cool when I first played The Witcher 3, but like it gets to a point where like everything, or like every Ubisoft game, right? Where everything just become this huge grind where like you just go out and yeah, there's different areas, but they're like nominally connected, and like when you run far enough, you'll see the background change, I guess. And then you get to a hub, and then there's like 12 things to do at that hub, and then you get to the next hub, and it just it feels grindy. It feels grindy in a way that when you play too many of those games, can be a bit much. Like I'm very excited to play Xenoblade Chronicles X because I never got that into it, but that was the only Xenoblade game that I fell off of fast just because there were so many different things to do that I'm all like, it was overwhelming. I'm like, I don't feel like
I'm gonna be also playing Definitive Edition, and like you, I fell off pretty quickly. I think that it.
Yeah, the thing with Xenoblade X is it's very clearly meant to be like an MMO, and so it's designed like an MMO.
Yeah.
And so it just has a whole bunch of MMO shit that's clogs
Yeah,
up.
It also lacks the thing that typically keeps me going in Xenoblade. Like, one of the two things is the exciting and crazy worlds, which are fun to explore, which it does have. But the other half is that Xenoblade... Okay, mostly Xenoblade 1 and 3, and to a lesser extent Xenoblade 2, there are, like, characters, and many of them are immediately, likable, and they become stronger when you get to know them. Again, Xenoblade 2 is a little bit less in the first regard, but like... the characters did not at all leap out to me. They feel very sedate, and again, I think that's because of that weird single player MMO element.
Yeah.
Yeah.
There's too many, like Delson says it here. It's like there's just so many mechanics, like, and it's like, what am I going to focus on? Building the mech or being part of like there? It's been years. I don't remember. There were like weird guild choices and this choice and that choice, and it's like
It's a million party members. Who do you want to have in your party? Which class do you want to make
it
them
felt
all?
bloated is what it is. Like, and I think that's a good word, and it's something else that Delphinson said is that a lot of these games start feeling bloated, right? And it's because I feel like they feel like we need to make like a 120-hour game, and it's like, I mean, no, you don't, man. Sometimes just having a more focused experience.
There's a game that we'll get the video for. Is coming out this week. A game I've reviewed, and I beat it in like 2 hours, and it was great.
Well, you know what? Like,
short and sweet.
I feel like there's a nice medium. Like, I played the Resident Evil 4 remake, and that was long enough without being crazy, because it's Resident Evil 4. And actually, I'm almost done with it. I decided that I'm paying for Game Pass, so I'm going to start actually playing games on Game Pass every month.
I actually, that's actually a segue kind of into what I've been doing.
Okay, well, can I finish the game I was talking
about?
Yeah,
sorry.
That's great. That's fine. Yeah. And so I downloaded the Dead Space remake, and that game is fantastic. Like, it's super good. And I'm like 16 hours in, and I'm just about finished with chapter 10, and there's 12 chapters. So like I'll get that game in under 20 hours. There's a new game plus, which to get the true ending and blah blah blah, which I absolutely won't do because I don't care.
I'm excited to play the Dead Space remake, but it's Dead Space. It's not.
Yeah. Like 20 hours of Dead Space is great. Like if I and I'm sure if I was a more focused player or better at survival horror, to be honest with you, I could probably have knocked it out in 15. But yeah, playing on medium difficulty and dying when there's too many xenomorphs in the room, it happens. Or getting stuck on a puzzle every now and then, it happens. But like that's great. That is a great experience for me. If I can beat a game like a meaty game, like between 20 to 40 hours, and then like a quick experience game like anywhere from 2 to 5, maybe 10 hours, like that's like I don't need I'm not living in a space now, and I think most of us aren't, because even if you don't have a lot of money for games, there's so many sales constantly, and there's many games out there that I don't have that experience that I had when I'm on the wrong side of 40, guys. I'm old. Where I'm a kid and I get a Super Nintendo game and I have to make this game last a couple months because or I'm gonna end up renting some games or something because there aren't that many gaming experiences. Now there's so many games out there that I very rarely feel that experience where I finish a game and I'm all like, man, I wish there was more of this game. There's games I really like and I'm like, that's great, but I'm like, I'm glad I can compartmentalize this, put it away, do something else. Really fast, and I know you guys want to talk, is just about that Dead Space remake. It added a lot of the elements from Dead Space 2, like the freeform flying. It added like smart backtracking. You actually find the weapons now as opposed to having to buy them. Like, it's a really, really well. It's like not just graphics. Like it's a really it plays a lot better than the first one, and it sucks that we're not going to get a Dead Space 2 remake because it underperformed. And I looked, and it sold like 2 million copies. So what were they expecting out of a Dead Space remake that they released a month after the Resident Evil 4 remake? Anyways, go ahead, Wolfman.
First they were expecting 5, probably.
Yeah.
Which is, again, like... yeah, so, I had a pretty eventful December in terms of what I was playing, because I wanted to get a few more games from last year. The likes of Prince of Persia: The Lost Crown, and Crow Country, and the Vampire Survivals Castlevania DLC, which is excessive to a point of almost like cosmic beauty. It is in fact not too bloated. That it is bloated enough, but
So real fast, I just downloaded yesterday, because I had it on my phone forever, but I barely played past like the first or second level. Empire Survivor on the Switch, it was on sale, but I haven't. I want to play the main game before the DLC. That is a fun game. That's all I want to say.
It is. It is a game that luxuriates in its own shallowness for the better.
It is. It is a game that I don't know how many of you guys like to do podcasts or audiobooks. I do a lot of audiobooks, but that is like fantastic, because when I listen to an audiobook, I like to be doing something else, but nothing that involves too much brain power, because I'm trying to listen to a book. And Vampire Survivor is the perfect thing to be like, I'm going to listen to Wind and Truth by Brandon Sanderson, and I'm just going to walk around and try not to die.
If once you get to a certain level of skill at the game, it's basically relatively easy for you to survive the whole session until you get killed by the enemy that counts as a win. Like, once you get that is a half hour. Like, if you want a half hour carved out with nothing, that's good for it. But I started a recent project for Source Gaming on the 1st, and actually the first chapter is going to come out in, assuming I did everything right, an hour and a half. A new project for the site. It's called Passing the Buck, and the idea is that last year, before Microsoft had that Game Pass sales hike, I bought 3 months of Game Pass, and now I'm cashing them in, and for the next 3 months I'm going to try to play Game Pass as much as I can and play as many games as I can. And this has led to an experience that's really fun. For the first 4 days of the year, I beat Brothers: A Tale of Two Sons, Shredder's Revenge, and the first episode of The Walking Dead Season 1, and I started Persona 3. This is great. Like, I'm just gonna play dozens of games, and so far it's actually been fairly easy. Unlike that Kingdom Hearts series I did, where everything was like just a giant level of friction, like right in front of me, or like the series I did last year where I started with 9 hours of Dragon Age Origins. That was just incredibly difficult to get through. This has been super easy. Brothers is a great game that, to be honest, did actually get To be honest, you know what? Don't have your players hold down a trigger button for multiple minutes at a time. That is painful. But the design is really cool. Shredder's Revenge is very fun and chunky, and it's actually really great to finally get to play stuff like Walking Dead, where these were some of these are really important games. They have historical relevance, and I should probably have played them as a games journalist. just saying, like, this is a helpful way for me to get caught up on a lot of stuff that I missed. I downloaded 12 games. And honestly, Spazzy, on your recommendation, the one I'm going to start today is probably going to be Dead Space. I don't know how many of these I'll complete, but I want to complete at least. That's certainly one I want to complete. I really liked the first Dead Space. It is speaking of that, our previous conversation, that is incredibly mercenary of a game. It rips off Resident Evil 4 so thoroughly that it's easy to think that it's just a Resident Evil 4 ripoff and not also a ripoff of Metroid Prime and Alien and The Thing and what's that one by Paul W.S. Anderson? The Event Horizon.
Yeah.
Game Pass seems like a really good deal. I just can't justify it to myself because I've got such a backlog already that I should really be focusing on. Like, just for this Christmas alone, I got Dragon Quest III HD, Anton Blast, Inscription, that Ray Fagoria. It's like that weird 3D Metroidvania one that's apparently with the furry main character. It's got a weird name. And Ys Origins as well, I got. So, that's already a bunch of games added on, and I still haven't played Christmas gifts from last year. I still haven't played Final Fantasy 7 or 8, which I got previous years.
Yeah. I wrote down a list of all the games I own. I have a backlog of over 200 games.
Yeah. And
I feel like I play a lot of games, more so than some of the staff. So that's why for this rule that I've had is that now that I've started Game Pass, I want to use it as much as I can. All of us, because all of us are subscribed to NSO, pretty much all of us have subscriptions for non-gaming things like Netflix or Hulu. Mm-hmm. So for me, I don't want to do that thing where I spend a month not playing this thing. I really want to get as much out of it as I can.
Yeah.
No, I have Game Pass because the only Xbox I have is an Xbox Series S, and you really don't have any other options at that point.
Yeah, I mean,
unless you want to overpay for digital games.
That's what I was considering back in the day. I was like, I might actually get a Series S just to get Game Pass for it. But now I think my PC should be able to run stuff perfectly fine.
Yeah,
so I could get it. For
it also
if I wanted.
You'll also get a few more games too.
Yeah.
Yep. Speaking of Game Pass, speaking of the Xbox Series S, speaking of games we've been playing, I'm still not done with it. Actually, speaking of also games that are really long, still not done with it, inching my way through it. Indiana Jones and the Great Circle is fucking phenomenal so far. It is fantastic. Yes?
I'm so happy to hear that because, I loved Wolfenstein: The New Order, and I was really I think, machine games needed a win.
I think the deal with long video games is I feel like what you gotta do is not make a video game that advertises itself as being long as humanly fucking possible, but instead make a game that lulls you into spending 20 hours in a single level, which is what Indiana Jones does a brilliant job of, because you have these kind of semi-open environments that you sort of slowly open up with new outfits and objects, kind of like a Metroidvania. But it's like the first big level of the game is just the Vatican, the whole of the Vatican. You explore the Vatican as Indiana Jones, all these little you can go into the Sistine Chapel. There's like underground tombs and shit you can like run through. And it's great. Like it doesn't like, even though there's like so many little side quests and extra exploratory bits, it never feels like busy work. It feels like, wow, I really want to do this. I really want to see what this game keeps throwing at me in like every little corner. All the while doing, I'm playing this on the Series S, so the resolution is like 720p, and it doesn't resolve to my big 4K TV very well, but the game looks fucking brilliant, and like, furthermore, it also like nails the actual visual language and aesthetics of the Spielberg trilogy so well. Just so well. It's great. Like, I'm having such a fucking blast with it.
Nice. It's good to hear.
And yeah, like, I know a friend who said they beat it in about 15 hours, and that was like not doing side stuff. I feel like I spent 15 hours alone in the Vatican, and then it's like the next level is like Egypt, and I feel like I spent another 12 hours in that. And then I'm currently in this big sprawling like jungle environment where, and it's like the game is just like chock full of little random things you can like encounter, and it's like, it's insane to think that so many people are going to skip over this. Like, whenever you get an achievement on Xbox, Wolfman, you're gonna encounter this. Like, every achievement is like a rare achievement because people are buying Game Pass and then like playing these games for 3 minutes and then turning them off.
Yeah. Oh yeah.
So I'm just like finding all this like side shit that apparently no one else found, and it's like, what the fuck do you mean there's a PT segment in Indiana Jones and the Great Circle? Like, holy shit! And the achievement for it's like, 8 people have done this.
Sometimes I feel like Game Pass it's like the diner menu, right? Like there's so many things on there, and like I played the first Fable game again for like 4 hours because I was like, oh, Fable, and then I was all like, I have better things to do than replay Fable, but it was there, and I was like, okay.
I mean, this is the whole issue with the streaming services or subscription services, is that you get so much content and you really don't use nearly as much of it as... Like, I don't want to boil games down into economics, because that's just not a healthy way to look at art or our consumption of art, but, like, there's a lot of stuff that I could be playing on, say, NSO, and I haven't... it took me until last fall, or last winter, to actually play Oracle of Seasons, and I'm maybe the biggest Zelda fan on the site, but it just only took me actively going out to play it.
Yeah, it's one of those things where if it's just like given to you like as part of a bundle deal, you actually feel a little less inclined to go search it out, because you're like, oh, I can just get back to that in like 3 months.
Yeah.
And then it really bites you in the ass when 8 months later they take Amnesia the Bunker off of Game Pass, and you're like, oh fuck, I forgot I even had this through Game Pass, and I didn't just own
there's
it.
I went through the other day, I think maybe on New Year's Day, going through and deleting games that I had like never even started, that I had downloaded on Game Pass, and I'm like, oh, this is no longer available. This is no longer available. This is no longer available.
Yeah, at least NSO hasn't removed anything yet off its service, so that's something.
Yeah, no, not yet.
Well, it's because we might see that in the future. I think in this case, it's because it's so based around one company's like collective output.
Yeah.
That there aren't legal or like economic reasons for it. But yeah, I'm looking up the prologue I wrote for this series, Xbox series I'm doing, and when I started preparing for it, I was like, okay, I'm going to play Persona 5 Tactical, The Quarry, Frog Detective, Somerville, and all of those got removed before the new year, and before I like took in my started my subscription.
Yeah, that
That
sucks.
sucks. Especially Persona 5 Tactica and Frog Detective are both really good games. Like, that's a shame.
I'll probably end up. I'm certain that some of those I'll end up picking up on a sale in the future, but still, a lot of stuff is left Xbox. A lot of cool stuff has been added. Apparently, Carrion just got added. Carrion rules.
Funny story about Carrion. I had downloaded it when it first came out. It was on Game Pass, and it was removed. But I waited so long to play it that it came back.
Yeah.
I mean, not to we've done a lot of like poo-pooing on
Carrion is, though,
Microsoft.
for people that don't know, though, because it's a cool concept.
Yeah, we've done a lot of like poo-pooing on Microsoft over the years, but it does seem like I will say the last couple months and the next couple months of like stuff they're adding to Game Pass is good, but that's because it's all like games they bought and like nothing else. Like
it's gotten bigger because they're trying to buy everything.
Like, I'm looking forward to Avowed and Atomfall, but that's also like the only games I know coming to Game Pass like soon.
The thing is, based off of all of their acquisitions, everything from Activision on down, plus their deal with EA, just between those two, you're gonna have a lot of mainstays that are gonna stay on there. And then it seems like every indie game has a cycle or two where it's on and off of Game Pass. So
yeah, because no one's actually buying games on Xbox.
That's a big problem.
Yeah.
Well, I think it's weird because I think it's a multifaceted problem. I think part of it is that a lot of people don't own Xboxes. Their consoles, generally speaking, don't sell well, and these ones aren't selling well. But I think it also goes beyond that. I do think that most people who buy Xbox are owning Game Pass, and so because of this, I think that the subscription service does make people, at least passively or subconsciously, like disinclined to buy more games.
Yeah.
Yeah,
with something like the Series S, it does feel like you're buying a system, like you're like borrowing an ecosystem, because it's like there's no disc drive, you have to pay for Game Pass and Xbox Live.
But here's another thing. I brought up before the disappointing sales for the Dead Space remake, right? And what sucks with that too is that I know that so much of that upfront cost was must have been modifying the Frostbite engine to work with a Dead Space game, so that the cost of the remake wouldn't be of part 2 wouldn't be as much as part 1. But regardless of any of that, when I started playing it, I'm like, it's good. Let's see what people are saying on different forums, on Reddit, on social media, whatever. And so many people were like, "Oh, this game's on sale for like $30. Should I buy it?" And everyone's all like, "Bro, just get Game Pass or just get EA's whatever EA has. You can get it for $1 and then you can play it." And so there's a lot of games that are available on things like that you have to wonder how the actual sales are being affected, and it doesn't seem to be that they are being subsidized well enough. I guess whatever the gaming equivalent of a streaming model is, whatever that licensing is, obviously isn't enough for them to, because is that even like considered? Is that being
is that
considered
being
by them to be
part
like
of the sales? I was thinking this just now, because like, how do you, as like from someone on the business developer side, how do you pitch this to like a sequel or a successor to your bosses? Being like, they're like, the game only sold this much, and you're like, but if you include how many people played it on Game Pass, it was actually this many people. But they're like, but the sales only say it's this much, because like, how do you? I'm sure there is a back way to tell how many people are playing it on Game Pass, but then you also have to think how many people just downloaded it and then never actually played it.
Yeah,
they have the statistics of who's actually of engagement and how many hours played and all that.
Yeah,
like, they know that. Like, achievements track that, if nothing else, right?
But like, if you are someone at EA and someone was trying to pitch to you like a Dead Space 2 remake, how do you fully be able to justify that? You've got the sales that you did actually make, and then you have to sort of figure out, wade through the stats and data you can get from Game Pass to figure out if it was actually played enough or had enough engagement, and then try and translate them to actual sales, and just get
it all feels very fucky, especially when like the reason like Microsoft is now giving up on console exclusivity is because the consoles people are buying more, people actually do buy games on them.
Yeah.
So it's like they are going to make real traditional profit on the PS5 version because they made the Xbox such like a borrow focused ecosystem.
It's a club.
Yeah.
So for some games they can sell themselves based on Game Pass. That's how Pentiment was made.
Yeah.
I also like, if you don't have Pentiment, buy Pentiment. It's on everything. It's the best. It's one of the best games I've ever played. It's absolutely incredible. Please.
I'm not familiar with the game.
Oh, it's by Obsidian, the people who made Fallout New Vegas and Pillars of Eternity, the people who are making Avowed. It's a RPG adventure game hybrid set in the post-medieval Germany. You're a German manuscript artist in Bavaria amid like the tumult and violence of the Protestant Reformation, and you solve mysteries.
Interesting.
Oh, I remember.
So,
Pentiment.
I will download that on Game Pass after we're done.
You got to play more Xbox games ahead of the Xbox stream next week, Snazzy. You gotta get your roster in check.
No, it's great.
Moving. Oh, sorry. Go on.
I was just saying that the reason why I brought it up isn't just to advertise it, although again, definitely play it. Is it's on Switch. It's apparently runs like a dream on Switch. Is that Pentiment, like Josh Sawyer, the director who was one of the main designers of Fallout New Vegas, like had this idea for this game for like a decade and only pitched it because he had the confidence that of Game Pass as a buffer, because it didn't matter whether or not it sold. What mattered was that it was providing a counterbalance to the likes of Halo Infinite or Starfield, and that you could just sell it as a new flavor to diversify the Game Pass. And I believe that's also how Hi-Fi Rush went into development too.
Yeah.
These were games that could have that buffer, but thinking about Tango Games, like,
I'm gonna say, look what happened with Hi-Fi Rush.
that it only helps. It can help, but it only helps so much. The model is limited. But sorry, Callan.
I was gonna say switching platforms, because over the holiday season, I actually procured a PlayStation 5, not a PS5 Pro. Even though I kind of do want one. If it wasn't $700, I probably, and it actually came with a disc drive, I probably would. I get a PS5 Pro, because like 4 years ago I bought a LG C1 OLED TV, and I was like, I'm gonna buy this really nice TV that has all of like the HDMI 2.1 gimmicks. It's 4K, it's 120 hertz, it has FreeSync, it has all the new gamer gimmicks, and then I'm gonna buy a next gen console to go with it, and then I waited 4 years to do so. And so now I finally have a PS5. The Pro would have probably taken advantage of that more, but whatever. I will say though, nothing has made me realize that physical games media is dead more than buying a PlayStation 5 and then like going through the PSN sales and realizing that like the discounts are like far better than. Like, half of those games don't even have physical copies. Like, they're like out of print.
Yeah.
I don't see the point of, and some people will crucify me in this, I don't see the point of physical anymore, because it's clutter and I have to install all of my games anyways.
Yeah, the installation thing is ridiculous. Thankfully, you don't have to do that on the Switch. But,
I just actually have an example for why. And I'm going to just use this. I own a physical copy of Spec Ops: The Line. It is backwards compatible on my Series X. And Take-Two cannot come to my house and take out the hammers and smash the disc. I will always have that. I think it's important that in an era where where games are being delisted regularly and where you literally don't actually own your physical media, it's important to have that as an option. It's a part of.
I mean, I appreciate that as an option, but I'm going to say two things real fast, Wolfman. Number one, if it's on my hard drive, I've never had anything physically taken off of my hard drive, and my hard drive for my original Xbox, which is like 20 years old, works. So I know hard drives can fail, but I think if you maintain them, it's not like as bad as people are saying. And I haven't had any of my solid state drives fail. So
I mean, without getting into that discussion too deep, I like physical because I think the used market and also just being able to lend people video games should just be part of the gaming ecosystem. Yeah. That's really the main reason why physical games are dying off. Companies just have been trying to kill that
they've been trying to kill that since Blockbuster.
Exactly.
Like people don't talk about that, but like Nintendo and Sony and Sega, they were not happy with that. I've seen
I've said it before, I love going to the library and borrowing a video game. It's very cool, it's very good, but also the flip side of it is that discs as a medium for video games is incredibly inefficient, and it has been for 2-3 generations. Things have to install to the system.
You have to install, and you have to get patches for them to work half the time. So, if I have this and then the company won't be able to take it away from me, but I'm like, what if they don't patch?
When I got a version of Control for the Series X, the Ultimate Edition, I was a little bit disappointed when I found out that half of the game wasn't on the disc. I'm much happier now. I believe Alan Wake 2, which I know I'm getting as a birthday gift, is better on that front.
Yeah,
I just got Alan Wake 2 for the PS5, and it took fucking forever to copy over because it's a whole 90 gig video game on the disc.
Control, by the way, is another game I downloaded on Game Pass, played a little bit of, and then they delisted it, and now it's back. So at least, I know they rotate things in and out. It feels whenever I guess the license gets cheaper, or they think there might be value in bringing it back. So at least that's a thing. Yeah, and the other thing is, I hate to say this, but I talk about this with Colin all the time when it comes to game preservation and physical games. It's they'll never take this 10-year-old game from me. Once a game is 10 years old, it'll run pretty well on emulation, and there's ways to get that game.
But I think that it's nice to not have to rely on emulation.
I know. I agree with you, but I'm just saying.
There are ways to get around these things, but I think in the end, I mentioned earlier that I had purchased and played through Prince of Persia: The Lost Crown in December, and I didn't want to pay Ubisoft directly because they're Ubisoft. As a side note, Slopes Game Room asks, "Is this pre-recorded?" No, we are literally talking right now.
Yep.
There might be.
We're not. This is pre-recorded, but we're
this
really
is pre-recording, but we anticipated who's going to be here.
We're gonna,
Sorry, go ahead.
I didn't want to pay the money because they're Ubisoft. They're absolutely dangerous, and by that point it wouldn't really help the team that made Prince of Persia: The Lost Crown because they had basically already been disbanded and forced to work on those forever games that maybe will come out in 10 years or never.
For instance,
quickly speaking on Prince of Persia, man, that game deserved so much better. That was really until I played Astro Bot, that was my favorite game of last year. It's such a good Metroidvania. If anyone is a fan of Symphony of the Night, they'd absolutely need to play.
Here's the thing: Metroidvanias are my favorite genre, and I actually love both the 3D and classic 2D Prince of Persia games. Mm-hmm. I have not gotten around to getting.
You do. You will love Lost Crown, Snazzy.
I know.
Absolutely.
I know.
This is why we need like good traditional games media, because I've tried to tell so many people that Prince of Persia game is good, and they're like, I don't believe you, and I'm like, there's literally a demo you can try, and then they're like,
Yeah.
it's Ubisoft, and it's like, oh my god.
People did the same thing for Phoenix Rising. That game was way better than people gave it credit for. Like, I really enjoyed it. It was a bit iffy. I played it on the Switch, and it was a little iffy on the Switch in terms of performance, but like that doesn't tend to bother me. And I had a really good time. It's no Horizon or Breath of the Wild, but it's like really better than most of the other like Ubisoft games I'd played.
On that note, it's also Spazzy. If you like Hollow Knight, if you like Celeste,
I love these games. These are games that I love.
Yeah, because basically the Lost Crown it liberally borrows from them, but in a way that doesn't feel too derivative. Like, there are so many bonus platforming sections that are just like, no, this is just a B-side level in Celeste.
Yeah, I didn't even think about that, but it's very Celeste coded further into it.
Yeah, I've beaten Hollow Knight 3 times, just because. I bought it on Steam because I played it in. I played it on the E3, and there used to be this video game conference you would go to, and they would show you games, and you get to play them before. It was in the before times, and I'm like, this game is cool, and I bought it on Steam when it came out, and played through it in Steam. Then there is an ex-Source Gaming staff member who I will not name. But I had a bet with him for... I'm like, there's no way the Mii Fighters aren't coming back for Smash Ultimate. And he's like, you're an idiot. And I'm all like, you're an idiot. I'll bet you a digital Switch game. So I got Hollow Knight on Switch. and I'm like, I might as well beat it on... It does. And then it was on Xbox Game Pass, and I said, I might as well get achievements for this game now.
Speaking of Hollow Knight, do we think 2025 is going to be the year of Silksong finally?
Absolutely not.
I hope so.
That game's coming out right after Winds of Winter. It's
It'll happen when it happens. I would love it to happen next year, but I try to be cautiously optimistic, with the willingness to assume that things might be bad. I'm going to give Team Cherry the benefit of that doubt, because Hollow Knight is what it is. It's so I'm perfectly confident assuming it's going to be a best game of the decade, one of the best games of the decade when it comes out. But there's also going to be a lot of other games to play.
Yeah. I almost wonder if it's at this point a Switch 2 game. Imagine Switch 2 with Silksong.
Silksong and a new 3D Mario.
Yeah.
And Metroid Prime 4.
And Metroid Prime 4 shortly after, yeah. It's because the thing with Silksong that still wilds me is I've played Silksong. I played it at a press event that I went to play Pokken and Mario Odyssey at, and they had a bunch of other games on the side, and one of them was Silksong. That's how long this game has been in development for. It was there when the Switch year one and was playable. I don't understand, and it was fine. So I am really Silksong is either a massive game, or they've completely changed up the way it plays and everything else on it. I'm so curious about it.
I have. It's gonna come out eventually, and it's gonna be good. But I haven't It's not something I'm expecting. One day it'll happen, and I'll be like, "Oh, that's nice."
The other thing about physical games on the PS5 is that I have a whole... One of the reasons I finally got around to getting a PS5 is because I have all these PS4 games. I have all these physical PS4 games that, I know there's $10 upgrades for most of these games, but I was still expecting to just put the disc in and game work trademark. I did not realize how much Sony hates people who own physical PS4 copies of these like cross-generation games, because if you put like, so if you put the disc for like Death Stranding in, and then you're like, okay, I'll upgrade to the $10 like PS5 version, it creates a second icon on the home screen for the PS5 version.
God.
And
know,
yeah.
oof. I was just gonna say, like, the experience of gaming, and maybe I'm just an old man, but I think part of the reason I freaking cherish my Switch is I buy a game.
It just works.
digitally
It's so simplistic.
or physically. I put it. It works, man.
Yeah.
I am an adult man that does a lot in my life, and like sometimes I don't play my PS5 for weeks at a time. And if I spend more than 1 week without like playing my PS5, I have to like I feel like update 12
relearn
things.
the UI. So awful.
Yes.
I played, I think, like 3 games on PS4 last year. I did a replay of Dark Souls. I played Tunic. And right at the end of the year, I was kind of like,
Tunic
for
is
some
lovely.
reason, I was just like, I kind of want to play a little bit of Elden Ring. Understanding, of course, that I was going to go on this absurd Game Pass adventure and wouldn't have time for it. But, you know, upload the Elden Ring disc I did, and then immediately it said, by the way, you gotta update now. Like, it does feel like every time I do a new game, on there, it does that.
And then all of a sudden, I have to update my controller. Like it's like, what is going on, man? I just want to play a game.
Also, like the amount of games that they have like these $10 upgrades for, which by the way, I actually don't. I think it's fine. Some of these, like the Horizon Zero Dawn or the Spider-Man, like PS5 upgrades, are just like straight up remasters in some respects. But like, I put in the disc for Tetris Effect, and it was like, do you want to pay $10 for the PS5 version? And it's like, what is even different? Like, what is?
Do you not want the 4K T Tetramino?
Well, that's the thing. It was already on 4K on the PS4, so I don't like. With some of these other ones, there's a bit more involved. The worst offender so far is Ghost of Tsushima, because I bought the director's cut. By the way, director's cut is like their cutesy way of doing Game of the Year edition. And the way Ghost of Tsushima updates on PS5 is if you have the regular version of the game, the base copy of the game for PS4, the upgrade to PS5 is $30 because you're getting all the content of the director's cut plus all of the visual upgrades. When you put the disc, the PS4 disc of the director's cut into the PS5, it still registers as the base version of the game, and so only offers a $30 upgrade until you manually install the PS4 version of the game, boot up into the main menu, and then it gives you the option to upgrade for $10 to the PS5 version.
Jesus
And
Christ.
from there, you then have to uninstall the PS4 version and reinstall the PS5 version. And it's like, it's cool that the system does actually allow you to choose if you want to install the PS5 or PS4 version of a game, because there are weird instances like Elden Ring where the running the PS4 version on a PS5 nets like better performance than just the native PS5 version. But also, Jesus Christ, that's like a lot of hoops.
Yeah, for sure.
Incredibly annoying.
If Switch 2 also has an upgrade system for some of its games, I really hope it's just a very simple process.
Yeah, like the smart delivery on Xbox.
Yeah.
Which is the way to do it. I also played the first game I played through entirely on my PS5 was a game I had already played before, RoboCop Rogue City, which is also another movie-based new video game. That game's cool as shit. It's like it basically everything I said about Indiana Jones. It's like they got the language of the original Paul Verhoeven movie and they just made like a game out of it.
One of my favorite things is when they take movies from like 20, 30, 40 years ago, and they're like, we're gonna make a video game. There's a market for it. Remember when they made a Warriors game for Xbox? That was weird.
It was for
Yeah, I
PS2,
do.
Warriors
Yeah.
and Reservoir Dogs, and they're both great.
Yeah, man. We just do it.
I think that, yeah, and of course you had the fantastic, probably not, The Sopranos: Road to Respect, which means that maybe in 40 years we'll get an Oz Cobb game.
Yeah. PS5's cool.
Yeah.
I wish the UI didn't blow. It's kind of weird how like obviously like the last gen and current gen Xboxes have the same UI because it's like the same OS under the hood. I'm really surprised how different the PS5 interface is from the PS4 because I generally find the PS4 UI to be good.
The thing I'll say is I feel like PS4 and PS5 both feel more reliable to me than the Xbox operating system, the OS, because I feel like randomly my controller will disconnect and then I have to troubleshoot, or sometimes like it just drops my Wi-Fi. Maybe it's just a me problem, but I never have these problems on anything that's not Xbox. I don't know why I have like so many random snags with that. So, like I said, maybe it's just a me thing, but
Yeah.
Yeah. So, with that, shall we do a couple of 2024/2025 topics that I had written down?
Switch 4 or Switch 5? Which one's going to come out? We're going to have... They're just going to...
I think actually we're going to get something potentially more exciting, and they are going to call it... They're going to look at the most, scintillating comedy of the 1990s and call it Switch to Switch.
Just GameCube 2. That's it.
Yeah.
It's just a
Yippee.
big
Switch.
GameCube 2 Hypercube.
Yes.
New Switch U.
Yeah, there we go. It's close. It'll be U Switch 2, but it'll be spelt TU.
I have a more interesting question for you guys. So the Switch 2, whatever it's called, is inevitable. It's going to come out, and I'm sure we're going to talk about it in a minute.
Yes.
But what do you think that means for the original Switch? Because it's going to be so much of, most likely from what we're seeing, a very iterative,
I think
on it. Will because I feel like with handhelds, and the Switch is a hybrid, but with handhelds, typically Nintendo has done a thing where they're like, well, now we're going to release a new version, a mini, a super light, something that within like a $99 price point, where we can finally get real kind of extra mass market on it, and you can get multiple Switches for your household, one for each kid, for a little kid that can't you don't want to give them like something too fancy.
Yeah.
Like that's what they've done with Game Boys and DSs and things like that in the past.
The thing is, like, people have been throwing around the idea of them doing like a Switch Micro or something this year, before the Switch 2 comes out. But like, they already have the Switch Lite.
Yeah.
Like they already exist.
The Switch.
So like a Switch Lite OLED is like maybe a possibility if they were going to do something new, but
I don't think they would do that. I think they want to go cheaper. I think like
I think realistically it would just be a case of like dropping the price of the Switch and Switch Lite and maybe even the OLED. Like Nintendo haven't done
but
many
then you have
price
the
drops
issue
for
of
it, but like there's no reason to make
of confusing
confusing
marketing if you have a Switch 2, and that's
well. See,
I think that. I mean, I think they need to support the Switch at least passively because there's still a huge audience and they can't expect everyone to jump over, or for that matter, forever. Yeah, they can't expect like it will probably take a long time for the second Switch to replace the first. So one rumor that was going around was that Nintendo was going to be kind of relying on third-party support for the original Switch. Like, they're not going to be making much of any games for it. Games that they do will just have multiple versions, but that we're going to see Nintendo try to move... and rely on... And so because of that, like... I don't know if... don't know if they need another model when the Lite can be rebranded as the less powerful, less useful model as it is. And I think
I
that
could see them doing, we were talking about digital versus physical. I could see them doing an all digital Lite.
I
And
mean,
like cutting out some parts and trying to sell it for like I said, for like sub $100.
I mean, that is certainly possible. Like, everyone's getting on the all-digital bandwagon, right?
Yeah.
Like, I could see them doing I don't know what they would market it as, that's the main thing, because... Look,
Yeah.
I see Slopes in chat saying they shouldn't call it the Switch 2. It is 100% called the Switch.
Yeah, they are definitely calling
They're
it the Switch
definitely
2.
calling
They're
it the
not going to
Switch
call
2.
it the Switcheroo.
But then you have to think, on the market, you'll have the Nintendo Switch, the Nintendo Switch 2, the Nintendo Switch OLED, and the Nintendo Switch Lite. And at the very least, the Switch 2 down the line will also get this Nintendo Switch 2 OLED.
Right.
So, like...
Yeah.
If you throw a digital-only one into there, what do you even call it? Where it's clear to people what all of these different ones are. Like,
Years ago I was saying they should have made like a little dongle, HDMI
I
dongle, the Switch stick.
Yeah.
That's like the perfect way of making like a $99 Switch that you don't have to put a cartridge slot on it.
Switch.
Well, if the Wii U was called the Wii 2, it would have definitely done way better. Like,
yeah, would not have.
they're not
I don't
really
think
comparable, because 2 automatically gives the idea that this is
Of a squeakquel
second thing. This is a sequel. Anything else doesn't.
And I mean, like, it was anecdotal, but there were still many, many instances of people being overtly confused about whether this was a Wii peripheral.
Yeah, people thought it was a controller called the Wii U.
Yeah, they marketed it
as
really
opposed to a
badly.
new system.
Like,
I do also think that it's worth pointing out that Nintendo's marketing, the development of the Directs aside, was largely abominable in that era. It was incredibly confused, and the name didn't help. But they by this point are generally a lot stronger at marketing.
Yeah, and
I mean,
they're gonna
Switch
do a
2
lot to
is it's like to the point, and also this thing is basically going to be like the PlayStation 2 of this generation. Like, people want a Switch 2, so they're just going to be like, fuck it, it's called the Switch 2.
Yeah, I think they're going to be quite good about how they differentiate the two as well. I was thinking about this because of that leak that was going around this morning with photos from, like, potentially the Joy-Cons for the Switch 2. Yeah. And they've got this blue... They're all black, but they've got this blue strip on the inside where it's the magnet that you'd connect to the Switch itself. And I realised that actually that's, like, something I hadn't thought about is, like, how do you get across to consumers that some Joy-Cons only work on the Switch 1 and some Joy-Cons only work on the Switch 2, as in they attach to it, not via Bluetooth, because I'm sure
the new ones are bigger.
Like, yeah, the new ones are a bit bigger, but on the box, like, how do you really get it across other than the fact that, like, one should obviously say Switch 2 on it? Like, do you change the name of the Joy-Cons? That seems a bit... It's already a brand, and especially if you want Joy-Cons to work, like, with the Switch 2 as well, the classic Joy-Cons, how do you do it? And I think having the Joy-Cons have, like, this sort of coloured inside is, like, just a nice little colour difference between the Switch 1 and Switch 2 Joy-Cons that make them stand out, kind of like how the cartridges for 3DS have the little nub, and I'm sure the Switch 2 cartridges will also have the little tiny nub on the side.
So I think, by the way, so Slopes Game Room again is saying, he sees many headaches, and I get that, but I think part of the issue with the Wii U marketing that people are forgetting is part of the reason that so many people thought it was probably just a controller for the Wii isn't just the name, but the fact that the Wii had so many peripherals. It had the balance board, it had this, it had that, it had, and like so many third-party ones too. Like the Switch doesn't have that same issue where there are a bunch of things that you could confuse for it. I also feel like even more now than when the Wii and Wii U came out, consumers are so accustomed, specifically with cell phones, that being like, oh, this is the iPhone this is the iPhone that, oh, this is the newer version. So I think it'll get a little less confusing. Now the problem will be game compatibility and like you said, peripheral, like Joy-Con compatibility, like making sure that through the branding that is that people understand which is which. But I think that the market understands better now than they did then, if that makes sense.
Yeah, and
Yeah,
on the topic of supporting Switch 1 still, obviously it's got a massive user base, so they're not going to abandon it completely. And I do think third parties will do a lot of the heavy lifting. I think Nintendo will leave it up to third parties to decide if they want to keep putting games on Switch 1, Switch 2 exclusive, or put them on both. I mean, technically anything will work on both if it's running on the Switch.
Yeah,
But Nintendo themselves, I think, will take a similar approach to what they did on the 3DS, where like there'll be a handful of games, original games, that will come out. Like, for example, on the 3DS, they had Fire Emblem Echoes, they had Metroid Samus Returns, they had Ever Oasis, Sushi Strikers. There'll be a handful of games like that, mostly from their partners, that will still come out on both Switch 1 and Switch 2. We were already seeing it with Pokemon Legends Are, and at this point Prime 4 is also probably coming out after the Switch 2, so those are two examples right there. But those will at least run on the Switch 2. And then anything that's like Nintendo properly markets as like a Switch 1 title will probably just be something like ports. If they even market them as... I mean, they might not even market any games as Switch 1 titles anymore in like directs, and then when they just come out, they'll come out as Switch 1 games. Like, because I'm sure Nintendo will want to show the best version of the game possible and show everything running on Switch 2. So that's also an option, right? It's something I've been thinking about, how they're going to do this physically. Because if everything on the Switch 1 runs on the Switch 2, like natively, without any sort of upgrade pathway needed or anything like that, I feel like it would get like confusing having Prime 4 physical Switch 1 and Switch 2 next to each other.
Well, they'll just probably do like a cross-gen thing.
Yeah, would it be like one box that has like... But then like the cartridge would need to be a Switch 1 cartridge, right? Because they have to fit both of them, so...
Xbox Smart Delivery, where it's like they have like
I'm talking
4 consoles on the box.
Yeah, I guess that's probably the best way to do it.
Yeah.
I would also say that we have a lot of, like... Nintendo likes to kind of do its own thing, but we do have a lot of, like, examples of how companies market cross-gen games, because we're currently in a console generation where it feels like everything is cross-gen, or most things are cross-gen, and because of that, like, you can just make a bunch of copies and just put them in a store as, this is a Switch 1 game and you can upgrade it to Switch 2, and then this is a version, and maybe they're exactly the same cartridge, but for people who are... But one is sold more easily to someone who might not be aware, or someone who just wants their copy to be the fancy Switch 2 version, even if they're identical.
I just realized Nintendo's done this before with the Game Boy, because you had Game Boy.
Yeah, I was about to mention it, the Game Boy Color.
And then the weird in-between where they had the black cartridges that were shaped like the Game Boy ones, but just a different color. Maybe they'll do that. I know the Switch cartridges are already black, but maybe they'll be like grey. Like a grey cartridge, but it's the same shape as the Switch 1 is implied. It shows that it's a game that works on both systems.
I feel like this is all going to be very straightforward once we get to it. Just because it feels weird because, like, it's Nintendo and they've never really done, like, a straightforward upgrade like this. Maybe arguably the GameCube to the Wii is, like, the closest, or the DS to 3DS, but, like...
And even those, DS
to 3DS.
Yeah, these are not... This is, like... I think this is going to be even more straightforward. Yeah. Like, the main reason Switch 2 is a good name is because, like, you know, PlayStation 1, like PlayStation 2, PlayStation 3, Sony, like...
So... Why not do it for Nintendo? Especially if this is just going to be similar in form factor to the Switch. Like, I'd understand if the form factor changed completely, but it hasn't. So...
Yeah, by the way, I'm upset that we're still not getting those analog triggers. That's the one thing that's upsetting me. That is a bit
upsetting, the lack of analog stuff. I don't really even understand why you wouldn't do it, but c'est la vie, I guess.
Maybe they just couldn't figure out a way to R&D small analog triggers. I have no idea.
I'm still expecting...
I mean, that doesn't seem likely, because you can get analog triggers on, like, little, Chinese
I know
devices.
I'm still expecting this system to be a bit more like the Wii U in terms of what its unique functionality is. like the dock having enough power in it to be able to have two separate screens. One, especially now that like there's been talks about how the dock will actually show some of the screen. Like it's not going to be like the current dock, it'll be one where you can at least see parts of the screen to get information across. And as I think about that, I'm like almost like, well, in that case, if you had like say a map on the handheld screen and then the gameplay is on the main screen, you could even still do that technically in docked mode, because now the screen is visible when it's plugged into the dock. I'm thinking like the Steam Deck's type of dock, the way that those work.
Yeah. I mean, you'd have to be sitting near it.
Yeah, you would. That would be the one thing. You'd have to like almost have it on your table instead of having it on your coffee table.
I mentioned that I was playing the first Fable game, but it was, I guess, the Xbox. It was like they did like a slight remaster of it for 360, I guess.
Yeah.
And I forgot that Microsoft did the Microsoft Smart Screen for a while, because it has that functionality built in. Because I guess they were trying to get some of that sort of stuff in there, and that's so smart. And I'm surprised that like that hasn't caught on in a bigger way, to just have like you have your cell phone with you, and you can use your cell phone for the stuff that you would use the second screen for, because it will stream to your cell phone, like a map and little information and stuff. Because like I don't know, like it seems like such a smart thing that never caught on. And at the time I get it, because not everybody kept their cell phones with them as much back then, or had smartphones. Right now, if a company did that and said like, yeah, like we're building this into almost all of our games where you can get second screen information. It's not mandatory for the game, but it'll help for inventory management and maps and other things on your phone. Like I would use that all the time.
Yeah, it's something I'm surprised Nintendo had. Well, I'm surprised and not surprised it's Nintendo, but like the only game of theirs that really has used mobile phones in any way was Everybody 1-2 Switch. And it seems like such a really good way to like just bring information, because everyone will have a smartphone on them. And like the NSO app as well, the Japanese one has way more functionality than the US and the European one for some bizarre reason. And I feel like a lot of the stuff that people miss about the 3DS and Wii U, like the extra apps and stuff like the activity log, could all be just on a mobile phone app now that just connects via Bluetooth to the Switch 2. And then you can still get all of those like little bonus features using your phone. Like, I can only assume the reason they don't do that is they either not thought about it, or they really don't want to rely on people having a phone to get some of these features.
Yeah, I think that's really ultimately it, is they don't want to make too many things that are dependent on hardware that they're not explicitly producing.
It seems like with everyone else sort of embracing this technology, and with it having lots of provable use cases, I feel like they should at least have it as an option for people. Like it's because like especially like because I'm thinking 52 worldwide classics would be way better if you could connect your phone to it and use that as a screen. Because there's so many games you can't play locally, because like you'd see every player's card hand. So you can't play like any card games like poker or blackjack or whatever, or Hanafuda or anything like that using in split screen mode. You have to do all of that stuff online. And which obviously wasn't a problem with the DS because everyone had their own systems. So it worked really well there. That's like my biggest problem with that game. Playing local multiplayer is just really naff, because you can basically only play board games and yacht dice, and that's it. But a phone would fix all these problems.
Yeah.
Regardless, do we think we're gonna see it soon?
Yes.
Trademark.
Okay. So they say
soon.
that next fiscal calendar, so that's at the end of March.
Yes.
I have to imagine that they will do that before that, because this thing still has to come out this year, and Nintendo probably wants a hype cycle that's not too long, longish, but not too long. I mean, January makes sense, but this is kind of like the inverted version of Silksong or coming out. Like, it'll happen when it happens. It's just kind of irritating that it hasn't happened.
There's a rumor saying that it's going to be announced within the next week, and
Yeah,
then the
on the
release
8th.
date will be in March,
Yeah, I've seen that.
which is an incredibly fast turnaround. But it's also yeah, I mean, yeah, I guess they could do that.
Yeah,
Like,
it's not impossible considering what the Switch did. Like, technically, we saw the Switch
Yeah.
in late October, and then it released in March. But realistically, all we got was an advert showing what it was and confirming that there was a new Mario Kart and Mario game coming to it. And that was
Right.
it. Then we didn't get anything
mean-
else about what the system did until January, when they actually showed off the Joy-Cons. They announced new games like ARMS and No More Heroes 3 and stuff.
The Switch 1's marketing cycle basically proved that you actually don't need like a whole year or two plus of marketing to lead up to a console, especially when like people already get the gist of it.
Yeah, and
Like-
I think
Exactly.
that's the big difference. I think with the Switch one, it made sense to have that early advert to show off what the Switch actually was, because it was so different from the Wii U. But if the Switch 2 is going to be so similar to it, you don't need that initial...
They're going the
Advert
Apple
reveal
iPhone approach, where it's just like soon trademark.
I hope they bring back Nintendo Switch Karen.
Like yeah, like a lot of people.
I think
Yeah, go on.
I don't know if they'll do this. I don't really care to speculate about the likelihood or whatever, but I certainly would enjoy like just a second version of that trailer, except instead it's new 3D Mario, Metroid Prime, new Mario Kart, and then like Elden Ring and
Yeah.
what's the Baldur's Gate, let's say.
Baldur's Gate 3.
Yeah. And then it has the same dopey song.
I don't. To responding to chat, I don't think they can hold off Switch 2 much longer. They've been cooking this thing for like 4 years. Like they.
Yeah.
Yeah. They
I
definitely this
feel
year.
like it has to have like an insane like first year of software.
Yes.
Yeah,
I
that's
feel like
why
they
they've been
broke it for
holding
so
it
long.
back so
Yeah.
much.
Yeah, that was the rumor
they
of why it
want-
was delayed, because like they wanted to make sure software was up and
Hey,
up
since
to
we're-
par.
Since we're Source Gaming, what do you guys think Sakurai's working on?
A sandwich.
I would like Smash, but I would also like something
Breakfast?
that isn't. I
Yeah.
think he's a great director, and I've kind of like waffled a lot because I think the likelihood of a Kid Icarus Uprising remake is... It would have to be a remake, not a remaster, I
Yeah.
think. Is just prohibitively expensive. But like...
I just feel like they want to get some sort of Mario Kart and Smash on there fast.
Yeah,
Yes.
Like I feel like
I'm quite weird. I think a new Smash Brothers is almost certainly in development. I don't expect to see it until like 2027 at the earliest, or like at least see
I
it
would-
release
yeah.
until 2027. But I just don't think he's working. Like, or at least I don't think it's the project he was teasing that he started in 2022.
Which, by the way,
I feel
what
like
an
it's
amazing
something else.
reveal.
Yeah, I know. What a way to do
Like,
it.
what an amazing reveal. This, like, 3-year series that I did it all in, like, a few months. And by the way, in that time, I'm working on a new project that...
I've been-
it was like
is
a
a-
twist. It was like I was watching The Prestige or something. I'm like,
Yeah.
oh, that's how the magic happened.
Like
wow.
my main
This is...
my big problem with it being Super Smash Brothers is like Sakurai did a whole bunch of stuff when he was like when he started working on Smash 4, right? Like they had to announce it early because it was going to be with Bandai Namco. People were going to see him walking around the Bandai Namco offices. He bought
And
an
also-
entire flat near Bandai Namco studios so that he didn't have to commute very far so that he could work there. And like that flat that I'm pretty sure is the same one he sold like before. It's the same flat where he recorded Smash Brothers DLC videos. It's the same one he was using for his YouTube channel. And I'm pretty sure he said in the video he sold that flat. And I feel like if he was still working with Bandai Namco on a new project, he would have just kept it, and there would have been more talk about Sakurai being at Bandai Namco. The very same thing they were fearing was going to happen. And like, it wouldn't surprise me if he was, occasionally there. Like, we know he hangs out with Harada and stuff like that. And if Bandai Namco are the ones working on a Kid Icarus Uprising remake, as the rumor was suggesting.
Yeah, by the way,
then
I think the worst thing he could be
sure he
doing
would
is a
be
Kid
in
Icarus
there.
Uprising remake. Like, maybe a new Kid Icarus game or something, but, like, you don't need him to remake
Well,
a game
exactly.
that
Yeah, no,
exists.
I would agree. I would agree. It's the thing with the Kid Icarus Uprising remake is that the base game itself is near perfect. It just needs to be remade because upscaling that would not really make it look attractive. But you don't need
Right, and
like
the controls
yeah.
need
his-
to be tweaked to work on a...
so it's not. You don't need to really like go out of your way to do the more like serious mechanical changes, and that's the stuff you kind of want Sakurai to do
Yeah.
with his games.
Like, Sakurai was, like, involved in the Kirby's Adventure remake back on the Game Boy Advance, Nightmare in Dreamland. Like, but he was very much more on a supervisory role
Yeah,
for that while he was working on Kirby Air Ride and the anime and stuff like that. Like, he was there to just, like, give suggestions or veto stuff that he thought might change too much, but like he wasn't really actively involved. And I'd imagine it's the same way for Kid Icarus Uprising. Like, he's not like there every single day, but he'll pop in if they do have, say, new story content. He'll probably write that, but he doesn't need to be in there the whole time like he would do on a new project. And like, Smash Brothers is certainly a weird one. It's weird to think of Smash Brothers without Sakurai, and I'm sure he would want to do it, but also Nintendo would definitely want to cover it out there. But like, I'm sure he'd also want to make something new finally after like a decade of doing Smash Brothers.
Yeah, I love his games, and I think he's an excellent director. I think he's an excellent director for Smash, but
I love Uprising, so don't like what I'm saying from him not working.
Yeah,
on it. It's like, I'd love it to be remade, but like he should not be on that.
He should be. Yeah, he should be on another project. I do think I would like to point out that the man has been like literally worked on Smash uninterrupted for an entire decade, because he worked on Smash 4 from 2012 to when the DLC wrapped at 2016 at the end of 2015, and then he immediately moved to Ultimate, where he worked until 2021 when Sora came out. So that's basically an entire decade of working on 3 games in the same series.
Yeah. And I think like Sakurai can be involved in Super Smash Brothers without having to be there every day and like be its director and stuff. Like even if he's not, if he steps down from the director role and lets someone else take that up for Super Smash Brothers, he's not going to be completely uninvolved. They're going to want him to be there for like passing the torch, so to speak. And I can't imagine it being anyone but Bandai Namco making this game. So like, if Sakurai was already going there, let's say for Kid Icarus Uprising, then also dealing with Smash at the same time. Like, it's not his main project, but he goes there once a week to make sure everything's going fine for both of them, and then has his main project be with whoever else that he's working with. Like,
so
it's whoever, because we don't know if his main project, if he's been hired by Nintendo to do it, if he's been hired by Sega to do it, if he's been picked up by some random studio, like was the case of Meteos. Like,
maybe he's doing PlayStation All-Stars Battle Royale.
Maybe.
I assume with Nintendo, but then again, like, it's not like he's only worked with them, just mostly, because Meteos was not a Nintendo game, and the weird Beetle Gachapon game was not a Nintendo game.
Yeah, like...
anything.
He's so he can. Meteos 2 already exists. It's a Disney game, a Disney crossover game. Sakurai's not involved on it. But yeah, I said Dells. I agree that we're not gonna go. That Nintendo are gonna want to have Super Smash Bros. On the Switch 2 relatively soon in its life cycle. I think 2027 is more likely, because I think there are other games like Mario Kart that they're gonna actually sort of keep running for longer. Like Mario Kart is absolutely going to have a booster course pass of its own that will keep going till 2027, and then they could stop that and put Smash Brothers up and have its DLC go for the next few years. And Splatoon 4 is also something that will probably drop around that time. So
to be honest, I know that we are primarily a Smash site, or that's how we started. I think Smash is less interesting to talk about for this than Mario Kart, because we know that Nintendo is working on one, and we know that they have to be working on one. But here's the thing. Nintendo, as a company, part of the reason why they like the strange gimmicks to some of their games, like for instance, New Super Mario Bros. 2's weird gold thing or whatever,
Yeah.
is because they like to sell old games. They like, or rather, they like the idea of selling their old games, and they don't want new ones to essentially like be so similar that there's no reason for you to buy, say, Mario Kart 10, and then not. They want you to buy. They'll want new players to buy Mario Kart 10 and still keep buying Mario Kart 8. And so, like, my question is, do you think that Mario Kart 10 will have a gimmick or a new feature, and what that might be? Because I have theories on it.
Mario
3
Kart
people per
8
cart.
Ultra Deluxe. It's just 8 again. But better looking now.
So there's wasn't there a rumor also? I mean, all these rumors don't
Well,
matter.
this-
at all, but,
yeah,
like,
I
there
think
being
I know.
another Nintendo crossover game that's not Smash.
Yeah,
related.
so like, I mean, this is the other argument potentially against Smash. If the next Mario Kart is actually like a crossover
Nintendo Kart.
game and is a bit more like Mario and Friends All-Star Racing sort of deal.
Yeah, it's still called Mario Kart, but it just has
Yes.
other Nintendo characters.
Mario Kart All Stars. I personally think the name Mario Kart Cross, because X is the Roman numeral for 10, cross implies crossover. You can have stuff like the X circuit could be the main, like the initial first one. Stuff like, I think that as a naming.
Why do we have 5
scheme
Fire Emblem
works.
tracks?
But like, I think if they're gonna do a crossover for Mario Kart, that's even more reason to delay Smash further. Because Nintendo can already use Mario Kart as its big, oh, here's the next racer or track or whatever DLC trailer drop after the fact, and to keep that crossover hype going. But yeah, I mean, I personally think they'll be leaning into the crossover stuff more. I said it on Discord the other day, but I'm like, minimum they'll have like the main 12 Mario characters, then maybe like 4 more after that are like slightly more unusual, and then every other character will be from a Nintendo game. Link, Zelda, Kirby, Pikmin,
You know what's funny, man?
Animal Crossing.
I would love if Mario, because that's where you get all the obscure Mario characters are in Mario Kart. So it's kind of bittersweet to see a crossover.
That's why people.
I would agree on that. Actually, I do.
Yeah.
I would agree on that.
I almost feel like other sports games are a better fit because they're team based. So you could have like Team Mario, team let's say there's a soccer game, for instance.
Mario
also
3-on-3.
Team,
Most of them are also less good, so you don't feel like the weight.
Yeah.
But I actually think that maybe there might be a mechanical element, though, not
sure
just
there
a
will be.
stylistic one.
Mhm.
Well,
Oh yeah. There's gonna be something.
well,
You did
the reason
anti-grav
I've been
last
thinking
time,
about
now-
this.
Go on.
Well, the reason I've been thinking about this is that in the past few years, we've seen a lot of Nintendo games. I'm going to put like from the last decade, 2015 to 2024. Is that you've seen a lot of Nintendo games that had a focus on like player direction or player creation. So you have like Tears of the Kingdom or Mario Maker or Echoes of Wisdom or Breath of the Wild or even stuff like Bowser's Fury, and it makes me wonder like. This is a crazy idea, and in all likelihood, it probably wouldn't be able to work. Do you think that maybe there might be a build-your-own-course element?
That would be kind of neat. A build-your-own-course stuff. I mean, like Diddy Kong Racing had it and stuff, and games like Trackmania are really popular. So
Hell, man, Sidebike had it in 1980.
True. So being able to, even if it's just basic circuit courses, and maybe you change the background theming. Like, I think build your own courses is certainly a neat feature. So, I mean, that might actually kind of ties into what I do think Nintendo's big focus with Mario Kart's going to be, beyond the crossover element, the more mechanical side of things. I think there's going to be a lot more focus on, like, single-player stuff. Like, kind of like what Mario Kart DS did. Like, I think the challenge mission mode from Mario Kart DS is going to be coming back. I think battle mode is going to be a bit more involved and I think there's going to be more base tracks in the game. Probably not as much as Mario Kart 8 Deluxe had from the start, but more than the usual. So I guess that's like 10 cups to start with.
Someone was asking about
and more
cartridge-based
customization
backwards
pieces.
compatibility.
Cartridge-based backwards compatibility. Would you wait? Oh, you mean playing Switch 1 games on Switch 2?
On Switch 2, they're like, I haven't really been paying too much attention to the leaks, honestly, because I don't care. Because when I see it, I'll see it.
Yeah.
Like I'm
Yeah,
past
it's-
hardware leaks.
The stuff that matters is stuff that we know,
Yeah.
i.e. backwards compatibility.
Yeah.
Yeah, I think there has been they from the leaks and rumors they have said that, and I think there might have even been some with multiple cartridge slots. But yeah, so I'm pretty sure that's going to happen. But we don't know till we know, man.
Yeah, I mean, we get cartridge backwards compatibility is definitely a thing. I mean, I'm pretty convinced it's going to be exactly the way
too.
that the DS and 3DS handled it, where the
Me too.
Switch 2 cartridges just shaped slightly differently, so that they can't fit in the Switch 1, and that'll be it.
Yep.
Like, there's no reason to not do that, especially if you're keeping cartridges. But yeah, I think the two main things, or three main things, if you include the crossover element for Mario Kart, are going to be a bigger emphasis on single-player content, more side stuff, more the challenge mode returns, because they already made a whole bunch of challenges for Mario Kart Tour, the mobile game. Like, they've already got a whole bunch of them that you could just very easily include as extra stuff alongside Time Attack and all that into the main game. And I also think that the tracks themselves are going to place a bigger emphasis on changing over the course of the race, shifting.
Ooh, maybe it'll be like Sonic and All-Star Racing transformed, but no.
Yeah, ironically,
No, maybe.
kind of funny, like that Sonic Crossworlds game that got announced, the new Sonic Racing one. I think the gimmick for that is going to be the fact that like tracks are going to be like that Smash Morph gimmick, where you're driving on one track and then you hit lap 2 and it suddenly you go through a big ring and you're on another track for the second lap. I actually kind of think they might do something like
Similar. That makes sense.
Like, even if
also
it'll just be like a side mode maybe, but like you can pick 3 courses, one for each lap, and then the game will like send you across different tracks.
or just more
Or
dynamic.
wrong.
I think you're onto something, especially with more power. Just have more dynamic tracks that change. Each lap might be different because elements of it might just significantly change. You know? Like they might do things.
I like the big innovation of Mario Kart 8 wasn't really like the upside down stuff or the like the gravity reversing. The real innovation was bringing it into this very sumptuous level of graphical fidelity. So I think Mario Kart 10 could also rely on the jump. I should also note I'm calling it Mario Kart 10 because Mario
Nelson said something Wonder Effect. That would be really cool. Like if there was literally like a Wonder Seed on each track that completely did something like wacky to it.
Continue, Wolfman.
Sorry. The reason I'm calling it it's okay. The reason I'm calling it Mario Kart 10 is because, and I'm sorry to say this because we don't want it to be true, but Mario Kart Tour was Mario Kart 9.
Speak for yourself. I am the biggest advocate for Mario Kart Tour being Mario Kart 9 because it's the truth, and I like that game, so I will fight for it.
But yeah, it's Nintendo did co-develop it, not just publish it, and that's why they ported so much content from it into Mario Kart 8.
Yeah, it's
yeah.
made by the Mario Kart team. It's like Bandai Namco took over like further development later on, after the fact. But like it was originally made fully by the Mario Kart team, so it's a Mario Kart game, and that's also why I think a lot of ideas from Mario Kart Tour will probably be brought forward to Mario Kart 10. Like, that's where a lot of the challenge stuff comes from. But then you've also, like, Mario Kart 10 Tour introduces stuff like Reverse Cup and Trick Cup, where you do this course backwards, or you do the course but they've added in a bunch of extra jumps and stuff, and you get points based on how much tricks you do. This is the kind of content they can bring to Mario Kart 10 to just have more options and more stuff to do beyond just the simple races and the time attack mode. Like, I think a reverse cup in particular is a really good idea, personally. Like, you've had mirror mode has been there for the longest time. If you had a reverse mode where you just played every track backwards, and they were slightly tweaked in some cases to make it possible. I think that people would love that. Like, the trick one, whatever. I think that would probably need to be a different mode entirely, because you'd have to have an incentive to doing tricks. But Reverse Cup just adds it adds more content while using all the same assets. It's just like smart, in my opinion.
You'd have to build the stage, though. You'd have to make sure that all the stages were built around that possibility.
Yeah,
So, like,
but I think they can do that. That's not.
Oh, they could. I will say, we might lose out on like some of the crazier ones that are only one way. But that's what it is.
Tor managed to turn old tracks into reverse tracks, and they would just usually get it done by adding a gliding section somewhere or a ramp somewhere that allowed the player to go back up in a place where they would normally have fallen down from. So, like, I think it's perfectly doable. Even if they can have crazy stages and then just set it up to run in reverse if they need to. I don't think a dedicated Nintendo crossover racing game will be different from Mario Kart, though. I think it's going to be Mario Kart. And no, EPD made Tor. They want support on it. Bandai Namco were the support on Tor. The Mario Kart team still designed all the tracks. And they still made all the assets. And well, Bandai Namco, I think, helped out on the asset making side. And we know Bandai Namco made all the challenge mode missions. But the Mario Kart team were the ones who decided on the characters, they were the ones who made the tracks, etc, etc. Yeah, Diddy Kong Racing had the reverse mode, you're right. But I think there's a lot they can do with Mario Kart, but I feel like the core gameplay will probably stay the same. Like, they're not going to add in drills or something for underground racing.
The basic thing of you have items and you use them, and there will probably be a new gimmick item. I don't know.
Yeah, I think it would be neat for them to bring back the unique items for races. It doesn't have to be like only Mario and Luigi have Fireball. You can expand it out so Mario, Luigi, Baby Mario, Baby Luigi, they all have Fireball.
Oh, I meant like an all-new item.
Oh, yeah, no, I'm sure they will. They'll definitely have all new items. You just made me think about it just now when you said it. No, I think that's another way they can differentiate it by bringing back Double Dash's unique item mechanic. There are items from, like, Tor that can be brought forward as well, like the bell item. So yeah, they'll definitely have something. Hell, the Wonder Flower could be an item. So, but yeah, I think there's plenty they'll do in Mario Kart, and I think we won't have to wait very long to find out, to be honest, because this is Mario's 40th anniversary coming up, and I'm pretty confident that Nintendo is going to be going hard for it with a new 3D Mario, a new Mario Kart, a new Mario sports game. Maybe even a port of some random Mario game.
Switching gears, do you think we're finally going to see Twilight Princess and Wind Waker
Yes.
HD?
Oh my god.
Let's do it.
Yeah, I mean, why not, right? Maybe.
I hope we do in their new remasters. I hope they're not just the fucking HD editions.
I do not expect
I'll go fucking Twilight Princess HD.
I like
Good
the
Lord.
I like the Wind Waker one, but yeah, the Twilight Princess one's pretty ugly. But given how Donkey Kong Country Returns HD looks, I'm not expecting Twilight Princess HD to look.
Forever Entertainment's Twilight Princess HD.
Yeah, I'm not. I think those two are just those two and the Prime, Metroid Prime 2 and 3 are all just games I could see them dropping. I was arguing this year, I was arguing that Metroid Prime 2 and 3 should be paced better, but given what they did with Pikmin 1 and 2, where they just sort of casually dropped both of them a month before Prime 4 came out, they might just do the same shit again.
No, that we were talking before about them still supporting the original Switch, and that might be what they do. Is that, hey, it's available on both, maybe even runs better on Switch too.
Yeah,
well, I mean, that's effectively what they did with the 3DS. It became a port machine.
Yeah.
Yep.
Like that's pretty much what I expect to happen here. We already have Donkey Kong, Xenoblade, both announced and coming out. There's rumors that Kirby Planet Robobot is coming out this year,
which
like a
would be
port of
nice.
That would be nice. Yeah.
Yeah, I'm not a huge fan of like the most of the modern Kirby, Forgotten Land aside, but I have heard good things about Robobot.
Yeah, Planet Robobot was by far the best Kirby game. I think you can argue it with Forgotten Land now which one is better, but a big part of why Planet Robobot was so good is because they decided that they wanted to do the complete opposite of Triple Deluxe when making it, and like turns out doing the complete opposite of the same type of Kirby game you've been making for the past however many years is the right decision to make a cool ass game. But that's another port, and then let's say there's a Mario port as well of something, because it's Mario's anniversary. Maybe they port Galaxy 2 to the Switch because it's not there yet. Like,
that would be really nice. It would be nice to have both
to chuck on, and you've got the two Zelda options because they'll want something Zelda. So whether it's both Twilight Princess and Wind Waker or just Wind Waker, there's going to be something Zelda this year. So there's like a ton of ports they could very easily drop this year to keep the Switch going. Actually thinking about it on Mario, what if that's how they go around the All-Star Collection? What if they just announce that Sunshine, Galaxy, and Galaxy 2 are all being ported to the Switch, but like not physically, and just on the eShop, and now they're all available to purchase fully forever now?
I know I was talking about my preference for the availability of physical media, but it's better than nothing.
Yeah. Like, I'm just thinking...
Mario 3D All-Stars.
Yeah, I can't see them doing 3D All-Stars 2 and it's just the same... 3D All-Stars Deluxe, and it's just the same 3D All-Stars, but now Galaxy 2 is also here. That would kind of suck, actually. Unless there was a way...
The game is $110 on GameStop.com.
Yeah.
Oh my god.
Like, unless I could... Although, to be fair, I could also see them be like, we're doing another reprint. You know what? I take back what I said just now. They will 100% do, here is another reprint of Super Mario All-Stars, but now Galaxy 2 is here. Because they did that back in the day, when they did the first Super Mario All-Stars, the 2D one. They redid it years later with Super Mario World tied into it. So you got Super Mario All-Stars plus Super Mario World. They will 100% do that this time. I just hope that if they do, they offer Galaxy 2 as a separate download for people who bought All-Stars 1.
And they also don't make it a timed exclusive, which I don't think they will. I think they got burned, justifiably burned on the reception to Mario All-Stars and especially Fire Emblem.
Yeah, Fire Emblem...
I threw something into the stream chat, you guys should see.
Fire Emblem NES not being out still, like, available anymore is, like, baffling. Even if that game is very mid. But you never know what Nintendo would be like, right?
By the way, the answer to if backwards compatibility would impact sales of Switch 1 or 2 versions, the answer is no.
Because they'll just factor that in multiple.
Yeah. Well, first off, like we know from literally other video game consoles that have existed on the market for 4 years now. People will just buy the next gen version. It's not,
Yeah.
But also, like, if people are buying these games, then what's the problem? Yeah, like, it's not...
I don't think they matter which system they buy it for. A sale is a sale, right? What they care more about is people buying the console itself. And I think that it's similar to the Switch one. That's going to be like a adopted but a slow adoption. The people who, like us, who actually follow about this and care about gaming stuff will buy a Switch 2 this year. Almost, pretty much, unless you just can't afford it. Like, you'll buy a Switch 2 this year, and the more casual group will slowly adopt it as, like, the next Mario Kart comes out, the next Animal Crossing comes out, etc.
Like, as I said, all of this shit seems weird and uncertain because this is, like, the first time Nintendo is doing something like this, but there are numerous other examples of every in the industry doing this for years.
Like, as long as they don't completely botch up the launches, like Sony did with the PS3 and PS5. Like, people are buying PS5s now in the same way that people eventually started buying PS3s in 2010. But the people remember the PS3 as being a bad, like, not that well adopted because for its first 3 years it wasn't. It was like they completely botched
stupid
releasing
expensive.
that.
Yeah.
As long as Nintendo doesn't do something like that, like announces the Switch 2 is going to be $500 or something like that, like, I think it'll be fine. Like, people who want it will upgrade to it. Nintendo and third parties will continue to support the Switch 1 with ports probably up until like 2027. And over those 2 years, regular consumers, will slowly start seeing more Switch 2 stuff, see games like Mario Kart and Animal Crossing, find out about it, and then maybe considering buying it if they've had their Switch for ages, or holding off and buying it later if they did that with the Switch already. Because there are still people who like just got a Switch for the first time this last year, like this Christmas.
Yeah, and it's not like once the Switch 2 is out, every single Switch will just like break and stop working. Like
there's still 50 million of them out there though.
As I said earlier, I've been using a PS4 Pro instead of upgrading to the PS5 for like 4 years, and it's like I missed out on 3 games total. Like, it's fine.
I've still not upgraded to the PS5, and the only reason I'm not considering it still is because I know the Switch 2 is coming out, and I'd rather save my money for that.
Yeah,
I have I have a Series X, so most PS5 exclude. Well, not actually, because there are a bunch of PS5 games that don't come out on Xbox, but the only one that I'm basically interested in is Astro Bot. And I guess Astro's Playroom?
Yeah, Astro's Playroom is really good, actually. I started with Playroom because I figured I should play it before Astro Bot, and I was like immediately blown away by it. I was like, this is sick. Yeah. Yeah, PS5 has very few exclusives, and there'll probably be some that come to Switch too.
I don't really care, but I feel like video game exclusives are just sort of a dead thing. Like, aside from Nintendo, who literally, like, that's their whole operation, is making games for their hardware.
Yeah.
Who cares? Just buy the box that you want that plays video games good. I don't think there needs to be.
Yeah,
well, I mean, Sony has their whole prestige things, which eventually go on PC, but
and to be honest, I don't like to upgrade a console unless there's a bunch of stuff that's like holding out. I'm sure Astrobot's great. I'm sure that in some number of years I'll get to it, but it's not a needed purchase.
Astrobot's an interesting one because, like, Astro's Playroom uses the DualSense, like the DualShock controller, a ton, but Astrobot itself actually doesn't. It's one of my wonders.
Well, you can turn all that shit off.
Like, it was kind of my disappointment with Astrobot. He doesn't use like basically any of the DualSense stuff. Whereas Playroom,
that's why I think they'll just bring it to PC at some point.
It made me think actually maybe they will bring it to PC.
There are options in the settings menu of Astrobot to just like turn all that stuff off, and then the game still works. And then also you can plug a DualSense into your PC, and just it'll work.
So like, I think actually, even though it's such a
but I don't have a PC that plugs into my TV, so I have a PS5.
Yeah, fair enough. I am curious what Sony will do with, because they've been talking now that they've remembered they actually own IP thanks to Astrobot. They've been talking about bringing some of that legacy IP back, and I'm curious if that. I'm curious what they decide to do with exclusivity going forward. If they actually start doing that, like, will games like Ape Escape actually be like multi-platform if they decide to bring them back, or like classic PS1 and PS2 games, will those go multi-platform? Or will they keep them as exclusives?
Probably not, unless they'll
keep the classics lineup on PS5 absolutely pitiful as it currently is.
Was there we've been at this for a couple hours now. So, and I know you kind of had more of an outline of what we were going to talk about, Ninja. So, like, do you want to kind of really start going over that?
Really, the only thing that we haven't sort of covered in this random go over, because the main thing I was going to talk about in 2025 was the Switch 2, and we just spent the last 30 minutes kind of talking about that. Unless you think, like, Xbox or PlayStation are going to do any kind of big announcement this year as well. Like, I know there are rumors that both are trying to do a Steam Deck type handheld, but whether we see that this year or not
would Sony do that after releasing a ridiculous like $200 like remote play?
Yes, absolutely.
Yeah, no, I 100% do. I think that
both of those are killer. Like if they actually do get like a Series S and like a portable PS5, like that kind of rules. Like that's gonna be that's good shit.
Yeah, I'd be more willing to pick up a portable PS5 than the actual PS5.
Yeah, hell yeah, handhelds rock.
Yeah. But like that, I mean, that's really it for 2025 stuff, is because the Switch 2 is the big one. And that's what everything that I imagine gaming discourse is going to be centered around this year. So, and we've already talked about it. The only other thing I had written down was, I guess, like, what's your 2024 Game of the Year? Which I covered already. I said Astro Bot, but what was it for you guys?
It's I mean, I still have yet to beat Indiana Jones, so I don't want to like wholly commit to saying that. So if we're just going with games I have actually beaten, it is going to either be Emio, the Smiling Man, Famicom Detective Club, or Mouthwashing.
Yeah, everyone's talking about Mouthwashing. Like,
Mouthwashing's fantastic.
Nice.
Phantom put up a screenshot for it for our screenshot gallery that we ended the year on.
Hell yeah! I forced him to play it in a in a voice call. It was fun watching Phantom lose their mind in real time.
It's not very long, is it? Mouthwashing.
It's like 2 hours.
Yeah,
it's just like It's mostly narrative driven.
Yeah, I think my only problem with Mouthwash is I saw it through social media stuff, like people talking about it there, and so I think I already know the basic storyline of what happens to everyone and stuff like that.
Well, I don't think you do.
For a narrative game is like a shame.
Hey, I feel like I didn't play any of those big games that came out, your Wukongs and your Helldivers and stuff. So
Yeah, the only AAA game I played last year was Zelda. Everything else was basically just indies or budget projects.
It doesn't have to be AAA to be Game of the Year, so...
I was gonna say, this is the year I'm gonna stop referring to indie games as indie, call them real video games, because that's what they are. Like... Similar.
Hey! My game of the year from last year was Lorelei and the Laser Eyes, and my second one was Balatro.
There you go.
I have the indie to me is not a derogatory term.
I know it's like at this point it's like the Hollywood movie sort of ecosystem where it's like you can't just go to Hollywood blockbusters and expect innovation. It's like. You're not getting an I Saw the TV Glow out of Disney. You're getting fucking Deadpool and Wolverine. So,
which did not sound good.
yeah. Coughing baby.
Unfortunately,
I mean, and there's definitely a place for big blockbuster too.
Absolutely. They're just not pushing innovation as much as small teams with a lot of devotion.
Yeah, even Astro Bot is like a tiny team. Like Sony like axed all of Team Japan, and then Asobi was like the remnants making weird peripheral games for the PlayStation camera and PSVR.
You're not getting UFO 50 out of Ubisoft.
True,
you know, you're not getting an anger put out of
Ubisoft.
True. And honestly, so many of the games I've been playing this year have been like games that have been out for like 2 or 3 years, if not more. Like I spent a lot of this year just catching up on older
backlog
games.
year.
Yeah, it's been a big backlog year for me.
I think
what came out this year that I played? I guess Echoes of Wisdom, really. I did enjoy that game a lot. So maybe
let's flip the switch. What's the worst game you guys played this year?
Oh, give me a second.
I win.
Oh, go on.
Yeah. For that series I did last year, what is it? Gunmetal Gaming. I did Eat Lead: The Return of Mad Hazard, a 2009
Oh, classic.
comedy starring Will Arnett as basically a fake Duke Nukem who had Mario's career and wasted it and now has to come back to rebuild his career as a video game mascot. It is, as a game, it's bad. As a comedy, it is interminable because the entire game is essentially consists of three things. Tired references, so instead of God of War, it's Conflict of the Deities. Instead of Final Fantasy, it's Penultimate Illusion. And the other part are references, lamp shading. So there's a section in the end where you have to save a like Dungeons and Dragons like esque video game mascot with a turret section, and it's terrible. And then you find out like at the whole time Matt Hazard constantly is like, this turret section's bad. Why is it in the game at all? And then at another point, you'll fight like a really bad boss fight, and he'll be like, back when I was a younger video game mascot, they didn't make boss fights this bad.
That's like the worst part of like Duke Nukem Forever, where it's suddenly like Duke Nukem saying shit like "power armor is for pussies," and it's like what? Where is this coming from? Like, why is it suddenly a spoof of video games when the first one is like a spoof of culture?
Yeah.
Yeah, Duke Nukem 3D is a game that is essentially basically just referencing dopey 80s action movies, or dopey 80s action movies that are actually really smart like They Live.
Yeah.
And Duke Nukem Forever is about Duke Nukem, which doesn't help because Duke Nukem is not that interesting of a character. He's just a guy who says dumb things that are occasionally just ripped off of better movies.
Yeah.
By the way, Matt Hazard has the same pipeline as Ukulele, where there's a follow-up that is like a cheaper like 2D platformer, and it's way better than the than the original game.
I hated Ukulele. I believe Nan, you liked it. I could not.
I liked it enough.
Yeah, I get it. I understand why people didn't like it. I had the benefit where because when it came out, I was in Japan. I couldn't play it for like 3/4 of a year, and I was also waiting for the Switch version. And by the time I got to it, they had ironed out a lot of the performance issues and stuff that a lot of people hated, and they'd updated the game a few times. It's still not like amazing, but I enjoyed it. I will give props to Yuka Replay. I played it at EGX. And when they announced it, I was like, why? Just make a new game. I don't understand. But actually, having played it, it's surprisingly really different. Like, I played it and then the original, and I was like, holy shit. Like, they've actually basically made an entirely new game here. One that's way more competently put together, and the level design is, like, way better. So I can kind of see the source on this one. It feels like what they wanted to make and just completely fucked up the first time. So I'm curious to see how people receive it when it eventually drops. But anyway,
I thought it was a competent 3D platformer, to be honest with you. But I also played it years after on Xbox.
I mean, Impossible Lair, the 2D one, is definitely the better game of the two.
Yeah,
like easily.
For me, it was I thought that it handled fine on the Switch, so in terms of performance, I didn't really see a lot of issues. What it was really more just, I found the gameplay very bad and very unsatisfying, but also I found, and I'm saying this as a person who was a Kickstarter backer, I did help fund the production of this game, if only by a small amount. I'm in the credits.
Yeah, same.
I hated the characters, I hated the story, I found everyone just unbelievably obnoxious. And that's just like...
Probably helps that I don't have that nostalgia for Banjo-Kazooie. Because I am so old that I was like a teenager when that game came out, and I'm all like, I'm gonna go play Lara Croft or Resident Evil. This is a kid's game. So I actually didn't come back to Banjo-Kazooie until like I played it for the first time on that series with Nintendex like a couple years ago. I'm like, oh, this is kind of fun. So I think not having that baggage when I played it also made me judge it differently than a lot of people.
Yeah.
I've also kind of come back and to Banjo in ways where it's, I think Banjo 1 is an excellent game. But I can see some of the problems, and as for Banjo Tooie, I can see more of them.
Yeah, I really want to play Banjo Tooie again, because unlike Kazooie, where I've played it a few times, I haven't touched Tooie since the Nintendo 64 days, and now that it's on NSO, I'm kind of tempted to play it again. I just haven't found the time to do it. But I remember even as a kid thinking Tooie was definitely flawed compared to the original.
It's just, like, ignoring a lot of the weird gameplay stuff, like the fact that the levels are too big and too confusing, and that, like, the game is very focused on, like, it feels more restrictive. Ignoring all that, I just find it a very weirdly mean-spirited game. Like, I think Banjo 1 kind of hit a nice thing where it's, like, kind of cartoony, but also with a little bit of that, like, classic British snark. And then Tooie is just, like, it's just very weirdly mean-spirited. You regularly, like, insult everyone around you, you kill that one ice cube, and it's like, he's not that interesting, but it's still, like, very weird, right?
It's from a sort of era where I feel like the gap between cute platform mascot and, like, dark 18-plus scenes and stuff was, like, really popular. Like, what Conquer is basically the personification of.
Yeah.
But, like, I feel like Banjo Tooie, you can see it's kind of leaning into that, or building up towards that. That sort of.
No, idea. I think that's that's a very natural way to. Yeah.
If we're talking about bad games we played last year, it doesn't have to have come out last year, right?
It'd be more fun if it is a 2024 game, but whatever. Go live your truth.
Yeah, because I played a game on the PlayStation 1 called Mad Panic Coaster. And
oh my god!
It was fucking awful. It was like I should have a screenshot of it. Hopefully, if it will even let me. Basically, it is the idea of, like, someone who doesn't know what a video game is trying to make a video game and it's absolute nauseating. I put a screenshot up on the stream. But, like, this is, like, what the game looks like all the time. You're, like, this close to the camera, and you're moving at, like, lightning speed on a roller coaster, trying to dodge every obstacle coming your way, drift around corners, because the roller coaster is just a track with no fences, so you can easily fall off, while also trying to attack enemies, while heavy metal zombie music just blares at you from all sides. It is, like, one of the worst experiences I have ever had with a video game.
God damn.
It's fucking atrocious. And, like, after about 20 minutes where me and my friends all sort of gave it a go each, and we went up against, they had a boss fight and all this, we were like, I never want to see this game again. I never want to touch this game anymore. So that's the worst game I played last year. If we're actually talking about ones that released in 2024, I mean, I guess the Rose and Camellia collection kind of also doesn't count, because it's a collection of Flash games that they ported to the Switch. In that case, it would be Nintendo World Championship, because that game was dire as fuck.
I actually liked everything I played from 2024.
Yeah.
So I don't know what, like, the weakest would be.
I haven't.
Because, like, everything I basically looking. I mean, I don't know. I guess, like, the Vampire Survivors one, which is only just because it's just Vampire Survivors DLC. But, like, again, like I said at the beginning of the show, I really liked it. Like, I didn't. It was really up to, like, stuff I did for Gunmetal Gaming that really hit me with things I did not care for, like, like the Saboteur or Modern Warfare 2 or Hawks.
Dang, I kind of like the Saboteur.
I mean, I think the Saboteur has, like,
it's not great, but, you know,
it's
I'm trying to think. I'm like, What year did Redfall come out? Oh, that was
2023.
yeah, right.
Although that was the year where I finally played Balan Wonderworld.
Hey, that's a great
Ooh,
game.
Suicide Squad Kills the Justice League came out this year.
It
That
did
was
come out
rad.
this year.
That's
Yeah.
that's a good game. I'll go to bat for Suicide Squad Kill the Justice League. It's fine. It's so fine.
It
Yeah.
just seems like a.
You know what, though? I almost rather bad games than just mediocre games.
Actually,
Like,
Spazzy,
I don't know.
it's hitting PS Plus this month, so we should play it. We should co-op Suicide Squad
Who-
Kill the Justice.
I'll do it, man.
Who will
you know
you
me.
play?
Just tell me to co-op a game and I'll co-op it.
I'll play as Captain Boomerang. I think
Boomerang, at least my sixth favorite Flash villain.
I can't think of any like bad non 2024 games I played. Though I would put as the worst 2024 game I've played is Call of Duty Black Ops 6.
Oh, was it?
Yeah, that was about natural.
Yeah, just like which kind of I mean like ostensibly evil series, don't get me wrong, but it does tickle my gamer brain in a way that I guess I'm invested in playing these games. And the big new innovation of this Call of Duty is they added Omni movement, which is effectively like Max Payne 3's movement but in first person. That's good. Thumbs up. I like that. Everything else about it, sauceless. Just completely fucking dull, boring. The multiplayer maps are awful. There's like some of the worst like just layouts of multiplayer shooter maps I've ever seen. Weapon pool sucks. Two shotguns. What is happening? And the post-release experience has only been completely fucking miserable, as it's like they have a battle pass that is like there's free stuff you can unlock, and then there's a paid tier, and then there's a secondary paid tier that gets you even more stuff. And they have these limited times that also have like paid progression systems. It's like it's a fucking mess. It's just like completely miserable.
God.
So
I wish I'd played that Funko game because I feel like that might have been the worst game.
that could have been the worst game.
I not for Source Gaming, but for the Avocado, the pop culture website, I do host an end of the year, like worst of the year, like award show. Funko Fusion came up a lot. That game sounds awful. It sounds awful. It also sounds obnoxious, which is like the perfect combination, right? Where
but it's got McCready and Chucky. Like, how can it?
I mean, yeah. What if Chucky actually looked scarier than normal Chucky because he's a Funko?
Yeah, the dead fucking eyes. Yeah.
Everyone. It's like, I think also it's just like everyone's trying to be a Fortnite. And I don't mean in terms of like a live service. I just mean in the idea of like a pop culture
Crossover
metaverse.
content farm. Yeah.
Yeah, and sometimes that's not bad. I mean, we love Smash. Admittedly, Smash came like a decade too
Smash is also
before
more
that
focused. I think that
Yeah, exactly.
comparing it directly
it's
to
game.
yeah. Like I think that's one of the many problems with multiverses is that
Yes.
it doesn't have a focus. You know,
Yeah.
it's like whatever
It's
we own.
weird because I like a lot of the stuff that Warner Brothers owns. So, and I think that you can find a way to make it work. But in practice, it really just is kind of like Cartoon Network stuff with a few DC bad guys, right? Like it's
Yeah. You get to that Ready
you-
Player One problem where it's just stuff. There's just stuff, and you don't know why that stuff connects or belongs. It's just.
It also
stuff
feels
me up.
like the wacky characters feel less exciting and more like they're there to be wacky or they're there to be like Sakurai's talked a lot about how like he doesn't include characters like Piranha Plant to be surprising, like he knows they will be, but he still wants them to be good characters who you can like for years afterwards. And that's not really something I get from, say, Banana Guard or whatever. And granted, I think Banana Guard might also be like repurposing movesets from characters who had to be cut for legal reasons, which is a different sort of problem.
Yeah, I think Banana Guard, that and the fact that they already had the asset from the assist trophy, the assist basically, was I think the only reason Banana Guard happened. But it is, you're right, it is a weird, I think that early on and stuff, and with nothing else around it, made it stand out as being really weird.
Yeah. I think also it kind of has the Concord problem where it planned all these ideas like in advance, but didn't necessarily account for like sticking the landing at the start. Although Multiverses was popular for the first few months, but like they burned out their stuff way too quickly, and when they relaunched, they switched engines midway through, which is not a good idea.
Yeah.
And there's so much stuff where it's like it's just also not a fun game. Like I've talked about this story.
I understand all that, but I'm just saying conceptually, when you look at that, like it's just it feels more of like a hodgepodge, and because it's just stuff that we own without having a focus. And I feel like Smash works well because it's video game all stars. It's essentially Nintendo all stars, but then it branched out. So it's but
the thing is, that the branching
celebration of a specific thing.
But the branching still works because like. Sure, Snake doesn't really have that much to do with Nintendo, and Cloud didn't for a long time. But, like, these characters generally orbit, like, this history of Nintendo and, to a broader extent, Japanese gaming. Like, it's valuable to have Mega Man and Sonic in Smash for the same reason why it's good to have, like, Snake in Astro Bot. They feel like very natural evolutions. Mega Man basically can't really exist without Nintendo.
Right.
Neither can classic
Sonic in a completely different way.
It also just like as a game, Multiverses is not satisfying. I've told this story before, I think, to the site. When I started, I was a Superman main, and he feels like a lightweight. Like Superman
seems weird. Like
wants,
should be
feels like a lightweight. He has less weight than Pichu.
That's
why for as mechanic as people like to complain sometimes about Smash Bros. Mechanically, and I get that from a competitive standpoint. I mean, we got Delphus in here in the chat. He can tell us some stuff. But I think the thing, and I think Delphus would also agree with this. The thing about Sakurai is that he does respect how characters should feel and how they should be portrayed, and there's a couple outliers that come from things like echoes and clones and stuff like that, but for the most part, like, a character should, like, if we're gonna have Captain Falcon, he's gonna be fast, like, you know what I mean? Like, it feels the way it should feel. We're gonna have Mega Man, it's gonna feel if you've only played a Mega Man game, he's kind of zony. It has that same kind of action economy of jump and shoot, and it works.
He's got the game feel also for Mega Man. Yep. Like he's more robotic in a way that's very different from a way that Sonic moves, where there's the aesthetics of these characters and the aesthetics of playing these characters feels very good, and it also it feels very good, and it also just feels satisfying. And if you want to look at it from that kind of meta or nostalgia perspective, it hits. But I think it also hits even if you don't really have that, which is why, like, I'm not a competitive player. I can't do a lot of Kazuya's like special moves, but I really like playing Kazuya because he feels great, and he fits in that like list of characters like Ganondorf or Byleth or Donkey Kong, where it just feels like he hits like a freight train, even in moves that don't, like the ones that just exist to set up combos. Everything there's like this incredible amount of game feel to everything.
That's why I think the platform fighters that are best outside of Smash are the ones that aren't trying to do a big all-star type of game, and the ones that also aren't just like Kung Fu Panda Party Game or whatever, although that was actually okay. Like the ones that are like Rivals of Aethers because it's very Smash inspired, but it has its own focus, its own characters, and it's doing its own thing. Like when people try to do Smash like big recognizable characters, but then ironically also get farther away from the core gameplay of Smash, that's when I think things kind of fall apart. Like All-Star Brawl also was like that, where it's like, it doesn't really feel satisfying.
Yeah. It doesn't. Nick All-Star Brawl also just felt strange because it felt like cross purposes. Like it was a Smash. It was a very competitive, focused Smash game aimed really more for Melee fans than anyone else. But also, it was trying to be a corporate crossover. But also, the stuff it was referencing felt very disparate. Where you have a lot of like '90s Nickelodeon, but not a lot of like Nickelodeon. But all the Nickelodeon stuff from after that, like especially the Avatar stuff, felt kind of obligatory.
It was weird because it felt like it was for people who played Melee in high school and college.
Yeah, and exactly. It also this is more of a complaint from a friend, but like doing a Hey Arnold stage and setting it in a city that's not at night and doesn't have like cool jazz music is very strange.
Yeah, not having a lot of music and sound effects and voices was strange. But anyways,
also with multiverses, I guess we're just kind of dunking on this for a while, but that's okay. I listened to all those leaks like years ago, so I can do that. There's a weird gimmickiness to a lot of the characters, Finn, Tom and Jerry, like where it feels like they're leaning into trying to make references or very enticing gimmicks over.
Shaggy?
It's like Smash if every character was Steve.
Yeah, I get that.
And I think, and I think also you see sometimes like fans making like movesets for Smash characters that try to incorporate as many references as possible. And that's like, it's an understandable why people do that, and Sakurai has done that himself to some extent.
It could make the moveset just feel like overly bloated, overly complex, too many moving parts going on, and doesn't just feel natural to play, or even that accurate to how the character should be.
Yeah,
it's just full of gimmicks.
It's strange because like you're kind of dealing with aesthetics over all this.
Yes.
And I think that is, as this continues, this is just like pop culture in general. We're going to see more of these metaverses or multiverses or crossover things, and that's just going to become an increasing part of our gaming landscape. And I think the most successful ones, at least like creatively, if not commercially, will be ones that feel like they can really tap into those kinds of aesthetics emotionally. But then again, they ones that are most successful might just be the ones that are the best at monetizing. Which brings us back to COD. Because that is a full-priced game that should not have... And full-priced games should not have season passes.
Yeah.
Alright, shall we begin wrapping this up? Because it's been nearly 3 hours now.
Yeah.
I would like to start Dead Space Remake, so yes.
I like
do it.
to
I would
read
like
and
to
start
start
making dinner.
breakfast.
Yeah. Alright. Well, thanks everyone who came in and joined us for the first Good Morning Source Gaming of the year. We've been talking a lot about Smash and the Switch 2, and that's convenient because with the Switch 2 coming out this year, I think that's going to be a big focus for us. Getting the Smash train, hype train build up, even if I don't think Sakurai is the one necessarily fully committed to it. I think it now is the time to start building that up because we're definitely getting one on the Switch 2. So expect to see stuff around that, including the return of the Fighter's Spirit series from Wolfman.
Yes!
The first one of those is for patrons is already out, but if you're not a patron, it will be out at the end of the week. So look forward to that, and the one that comes after that is already in production. So it won't be a very long wait, and we're going to keep that going. that's basically the only plug I wanted to make. Unless you're free on Friday, in which that's it. We're gonna the Microsoft stream, because I know a lot of people have been asking about it, because it was meant to be in December, but then a bunch of us got sick and the holidays and all that. That's gonna be next Sunday. So unless the Switch 2 gets announced, in which case maybe I'll push it back another week. If the Switch 2 does actually get announced this weekend, I'll have to consider what we do next weekend. Maybe there'll be another Good Morning Source Gaming.
Yeah, the thing is, Microsoft isn't coming out with new games, so our thing is evergreen.
True, it's
not
true.
like we have to
Yeah.
So Matt, there will be a stream next Sunday. Whether it's Microsoft or whether it's Switch 2 focused will entirely depend on Nintendo. But alright, on screen right now are our patrons. You can find out how to become one of them and get early access to videos like the Fighter Spirit ones early, by just giving at least $1. There's a link in.
Guys, we haven't had a super patron in like 5 years. Somebody become a super patron.
That's not true.
Just
we had
do
a
it.
super patron last year.
Did we?
Yes.
Oh man, just haven't.
Get on.
I'm not paying attention.
Yeah, you are
I
not.
need to get
paying
back on
attention. We've had a super patron for the last year and a bit, actually.
Nice.
Shout out.
But we
to
don't have
Mr.
we don't have one now.
JBR
So if anyone wants to,
GB.
yeah, come on.
All right. Anyway,
You get all sorts of stuff. I don't know what you get.
Mr.
actually, at all.
JBRPG, the legend.
Yeah.
Anyway, bye
If someone
guys.
donates, becomes a super patron, I will completely stream any game. I don't stream games, but I will set up and stream any game of your choice. I don't care what it is, man. I'll do it.
Oh,
Suicide Squad, kill the Justice League.
Yeah, hopefully.
All
All right, bye guys.
take care, everyone.